26th to order. Will everybody rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
President McGinley, Trustee Enright,
Here.
Trustee Fasoulis,
Here.
Trustee Kenwood.
I don't think I can answer.
He's
until
not
I'm
here yet.
voted in.
Can I have a motion to make a motion to have a remote participation for Trustee Kenwood, please?
So moved.
Second.
Can I have a vote?
Okay, Trustee Enright,
Yes.
Trustee Fasoulis,
Yes.
Trustee Ladisek,
Yes.
Trustee Pride,
Yes.
Trustee Senek.
Aye.
Now, will you state if you're here for the record, John?
I'm here for the record, John.
All right, Trustee Kenwood. Trustee Ladisek,
Yes.
Trustee Pride,
Yes.
Trustee Senek,
Here.
President McGinley.
Here,
Piece of
Made
cake.
it.
Piece of cake.
okay.
Just what we ordered.
All right, so we can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
No, we did that.
Thank you.
They're all good, same.
I'm with you. I'm with you. We're on D. Okay, village recognition. With the village clerk, please.
The village board and the management team extends its best wishes to Lisa Ebergeny of the Finance Department on her retirement and thank her for her service.
Thank you. And we'll move on to audience participation. And we have the 2016 Historic Preservation Annual Awards. Commissioners Tim Loftus and Lee Marks are here. Hi. Did you want to go ahead and present?
All set? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Give us just a sec to get set up here. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our village board liaison, Mark Sonic, does a great job at helping us out, and we don't know how much we appreciate your help
Thank
on
you.
our Preservation Commission. And also Staff Representative Kelly Purvis, who has been a tremendous help to us. So thanks to you both. Okay. All right, the first award tonight is the Restoration of the Year Award. It goes to Ian and Elizabeth Dawson for the restoration and the exterior of their home at 869 Hillside. Are they here this evening? Want to come on up, please? The Dawsons began their restoration project in August 2015 and completed it in May 2016. Over the course of several hundred man-hours, the owners hand-scraped the shingles on the facade to prepare the house for repainting. In the same fashion, they stripped the front porch and doors to their bare lumber prior to restoring them. The porch door was fully restored with original hardware from Curtis Brothers, 1866. This award is given based upon the extent to which the original character of the house is retained. They did a wonderful job. Appreciate your hard work. Thank you. The next award is Restoration of the Year for a Public Building. The Restoration of the Year Award for a public building will go to the Glen Ellen Park District for the restoration of the Lake Ellen Boathouse at 645 Lennox Road, completed in July 2016. The boathouse restoration project was an historically authentic restoration that landed Lake Ellen Park on the National Register of Historic Places and sparked the local nomination for landmark status. The restoration was respectful of the original design and intent and maintained the original character of the boathouse. And Kathy Cornell is here from the park to accept. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
The Remodel of the Year Award will go to Michael and Sharon Unger. Are they here this evening? You want to come up, please? For the remodel of their home at 520 Longfellow Avenue. The 1960 split level was remodeled to include an arbor and a sitting area in the front, which makes the property look inviting and adds architectural interest to the house, while maintaining the same footprint as the original structure. This award is given based upon the extent to which the remodeling project maintains the home's original character. Congratulations. The Streetscape Compatibility Award goes to David and Jane Rowe. Would they come up, please? This is an interesting story I'd like to comment on briefly. Hi. I met them both probably about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and they were looking at a Victorian farmhouse on Park Boulevard, 636 Park Boulevard. And I went over and looked at the house with a couple people from the Preservation Commission, and then we had made a recommendation that one of the top carpenters in town should take a look at it to see if the house could be saved. The carpenter went through the entire house and said, you know what, it's really pretty far gone. I don't think it would be economically feasible to save this house, but they tried. So what they did, the house came down, unfortunately, but what they did is they built a very nice Victorian-style farmhouse replica with a front porch, like the original, as you can see. Did a very nice job, and we congratulate them on doing a real nice job and really adding to the streetscape on Park Boulevard. Congratulations. And we have some certificates of appreciation. It's very difficult when we're doing these awards because we sincerely appreciate the hard work that everyone does in working on these homes. So we have certificates of appreciation. The first one is for Ben Livermore for the remodel of his home at 444 Turner. The original 1,100 square foot ranch home was fully renovated into a 2,950 square foot two-story home utilizing the existing foundation. Approximately 60% of the original first floor brick facade was salvaged. The renovated home now blends into the neighborhood and has positively changed the appearance of the corner of Turner and Prospect. Is Mr. Livermore here tonight? Okay, we'll save that certificate for him.
Oh, no, he's here.
Oh, you are here. Okay, glad to see it.
It was a long time coming. I watched it.
Thank you very much for your work on the house. Appreciate it. Congratulations. The Historic Preservation Commission would like to acknowledge Mark and Dana McMurray for the remodel of their home at 385 Vine Street, which took place from April 2016 to December 2016. The project was completed by CNC Construction and Studio One Architects and used all local contractors. The remodel preserved the home while giving it a fresh new look. Are the McMurrays here this evening? Aha. Okay. Glad everybody could make it tonight. Congratulations to you. Thank you for the work you did in the house. The final award this evening is acknowledging the work of Eric and Laura O'Reilly for the remodel of their home at 340 Prospect Avenue. The house is a 1920s Gordon Van Tyne that was remodeled to include a second story, excuse me. The original exterior and the first floor plan was not altered, and the addition of the second story is a seamless extension of the original. If they would come forward, please. Eric and Laura O'Reilly.
They can't make it on the architect's board.
Okay, wonderful.
They invited me, and then they said, we're not showing up.
Congratulations. That's very nice. Thanks again to everybody's hard work in preserving these homes and the work that was done on them. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Lee, could I add just one thing that
Sure.
residents, you can nominate your own projects. We're always looking, the Historic Preservation Commission is always looking for new homes or some streets in town that are obscure and people don't see them. You can nominate your own projects. Neighbors, you can nominate your neighbors' projects. And if you see a project in town that you like, you can nominate them, and chances are they may have been nominated before. But I encourage you to go on their website and look at the Historic Preservation nomination details.
Thanks, Pete. You also can call the village office and talk to Kelly Purvis, who's our staff representative, and she can get you in line with applications or whatever you might need if you want to apply. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for everyone who not only came tonight, but for all of your effort. It is truly appreciated, as well as the Historic Preservation Commission. I used to be liaison, and the process and the thought that goes through this, it is truly a caring process, and a lot of thought goes through it, and I know that it's really appreciated when everyone invests back into the community as you have done. So thank you. We're going to move on to additional public comment. However, for those who have never been to a board meeting before, it is highly appropriate if you wish to depart as we are going through the next item if you do not wish to stay. But thank you. So next we are going to call if there's any members for the public who are welcome to speak on any item that is not specifically listed on the agenda. Village Clerk, do we have anyone signed up?
We have nobody.
We have nobody? Okay. Would you like to sign up? Okay, so while they're departing, can you sign up and then we'll, right with our village clerk. Is there anybody else here who wishes to sign up to speak on an item that is not on the current agenda? Okay. So we will. I hope I made it clear that you can stay.
They understood.
Great, thank you. Perfect timing. You may go ahead and take the podium. If you can just state
so I
your
have a
name for us.
Tom Garippo.
Is this, can you hear?
You can use a little one. That way, yep, there you go.
Little one here? Okay. My name is Tom Garippo. I'm a 20-year resident of Glen Ellen, very active in the community. Sunday morning, yesterday, something very scary happened. I live on Spring Avenue, 56 Spring Avenue, you know, right behind where the old Dominic's was. And there's a small side street, Lombard Avenue, which goes into where Baker Hill is cut off. I don't know if you know where that is, but there were two cars going in different directions right off of the 53 and Spring Avenue. And this car was going really fast on Lombard, which is a very short street. And I swear I thought it was going to be a 3-car pileup, you know. And I'm like, now of course the street's kind of on a incline, so I know there's a stop sign there, but I mean, I know in Flowerfield and Lombard they have those, you know, watch your speed cameras. I mean, I know it's a short street. I mean, it might not, you know, I mean, it just scares me. I'm just wondering if there's anything you could do about it.
We can, if I'm correct, we will definitely refer this matter to one of our police officers who manages these situations, and then they do some research into it. And our manager, Mark, will give you his business card to follow up with him.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Okay. All right, is there anybody else who wishes to address the board?
I have a Kathy Cornell.
Hi, I'm wearing two hats. First, thanks to the board and the Historic Preservation Commission for recognizing the work at the Historic Boathouse, and me as a resident at 678 Forest Avenue. I want to thank the staff and board for pointing out to the community that volcano mulching kills trees. This is one of my favorite topics. I know that we alerted the village last year, but I actually think it's gotten worse. And it seems like now, in addition to volcano mulching, we're doing mound mulching. So I want to thank you for recognizing it and encourage you to continue to educate the community, because I really think people just don't know. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Julius, did you want to add anything to that, or are you okay?
No.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to address the board? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda presented by Manager Franz.
Yes, the following items are considered routine business by the village board and will be approved in a single vote in the form listed below. Item number 1, June 5th, 2017, Special Village Board Workshop Minutes. June 12th, Special Village Board Workshop Minutes. June 12th, 2017, Special Village Board Meeting Minutes. That's items 1, 2, and 3. Item 4, total expenditures, including payroll and vouchers totaling $2,075,039.55. The vouchers have been reviewed by Trustee Enright and by myself prior to this meeting and are consistent with the village's purchasing policy. Item 5, an ordinance of the Village of Glen Ellen ascertaining the prevailing rate of wages for laborers, workers, and mechanics employed by contractors performing public works for the village. Item 6, an ordinance to amend Chapter 19 of Title III Liquor Control Code, Section 11, Class O of the Village Code. Item 7, waive competitive bidding and authorize the village manager to execute a contract with Corrective Asphalt Materials of South Roxana, Illinois, in the amount of $25,000 for the 2017 asphalt surface rejuvenation project to be expended to the Capital Projects Fund. Item 8, waive competitive bidding and authorize the village manager to execute a contract with Superior Road Striping in the amount of $60,000 for the 2017 pavement line striping project to be expensed to the general and parking funds. Item 9, authorize the village manager to execute a contract with Mondi Construction of West Chicago in the amount of $214,500, including a 7% contingency for the 2017 sidewalk and concrete street repair program to be expensed to the Capital Projects Water and Sanitary Funds, respectively. Item 10, approve and authorize the village manager to execute a contract for the upgrade of Newton Motor Control Center to Allen Integrated Control Systems of East Troy, Wisconsin, in the amount not to exceed $23,655 to be expensed to the Water Sewer Fund. Item 11, approve and authorize the village manager to execute the award of a contract in partnership with DuPage County Procurement Services, which is an authorized exception to the purchasing policy, to Detroit Salt Company for the purchase of 1,440 to 2,340 tons of bulk rock salt in the amount not to exceed $120,000 to be expensed to the Motor Fuel Tax Fund, and for the purchase of 340 tons of emergency bulk rock salt, if needed, in the amount not to exceed $19,500, also to be expensed to the Motor Fuel Tax Fund. Item 12, approve and authorize the village manager to execute an agreement with James J. Bennis and Associates of Lisle, Illinois, in the amount not to exceed $45,276 for detailed design engineering of a 3/4 access intersection at Roosevelt and Pershing, outside of Baker Hill subdivision, to be expensed to the Capital Projects Fund. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Wait, I'm just going to clarify one thing. On item 11, it's $120,500.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions by the board? None. Is there any public comment on any of the items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion, please?
I motion to approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 12, including payroll and vouchers in the amount of $2,075,039.55.
Great, may I have a second?
Second.
Oh, did Kenwood?
Yes.
Kenwood made the second. Sorry. And roll call, please.
Trustee Enright,
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood,
Yes.
Trustee Fasulis,
Yes.
Trustee Ladisek,
Yes.
Trustee Pride. Yes. Trustee Senek.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Motion passes. We are going to go a little bit out of order tonight, just in case anyone here is here from item G. Item G has been pulled from the agenda at the petitioner's request. So if anyone is here for that, just so you know, we will not be addressing that item. We are going to actually jump to item K, the 2016 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, and presented by our Finance Director.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present the 2016 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which is otherwise known as our audited financial statements. I have Jamie Wilkie here from Lauterbach and Amen that will also help present this report to the board. In February of this year, we did present the year-end financial report to the board for 2016. That report was largely based on the village's cash basis internal financial statements. So after year-end, we go through a process to close our books and prepare the financial statements to be audited, and then they are audited by our independent accounting firm, Lauterbach and Amen. So I'm going to go over a few highlights of the report. I'm going to show you a few sections that the board might wish to review later if they haven't already done so, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jamie just to discuss the auditor's report. And certainly stop me if you have any questions as we go through. So perhaps the best section of the financial statements to review if you're just going to look at one area of the financial statements is the management's discussion and analysis. And so if you go in the report, it starts on MD&A 1. If you're looking at your packet page numbers, it's packet page 324. And I'm just going to go over a couple of the financial highlights. We did go over these in our meeting in February, but we have some new trustees on the board, so I thought it would be helpful to go over a few of these highlights of our 2016 financial performance. So the village's net position increased by 2.5%, and net position is the government term for equity, increased by 2.5% during the year. Our business type activities, or activities funded by user charges like our water and sewer fund, increased by over 2.7 million or 3.2%. And the net position of our governmental activities, those activities that are more traditionally funded by different taxes, increased by $2.2 million or 2%. And these increases are largely due to our investment in our capital assets and our infrastructure. The fourth bullet point down on MD&A 1 discusses the general fund performance. The general fund is the main operating fund of the village. The general fund balance or equity decreased during the year by $51,669. The reason for this decrease is that the village board did authorize an additional contribution of $400,000 to the police pension fund, an additional contribution of $200,000 to the facilities reserve fund. This was to distribute the surplus realized in fiscal year 2015. If you take these one-time transfers out, the general fund actually had a surplus of $548,311. And good performance by our sales, some of our key revenues such as our sales tax, as well as expenditures being under budget, helped contribute towards the surplus. So as the board did last year, we will be taking a recommendation for the fiscal 2016 surplus for the general fund to the Finance Commission in July, and then it will come back to the village board for discussion to determine how the board would like to handle that 2016 general fund surplus.
Sorry, did you say how much was the surplus again?
$548,331. $548,331.
Got it, thanks.
One point to note, starting in April 2016, the village did note a declining trend in our income tax. Overall, that revenue decreased just over $224,000 from 2015 to 2016 and was below budget by $45,000. So we continue to monitor that revenue. The last point, we talk about the additional contributions. Our funded status for our police pension fund increased to 57.5% from 55.7%. So that additional contribution that we made did increase the funded status of that pension fund. And then if you turn over to MD&A 2, I'm going to hit a couple of the points there. So at the end of 2016, we had spent $5.7 million of the police station construction budget. Our water and sewer rates did not get increased for 2016, and we did note a positive change in net position of $2.51 million. The village does fund its water and sewer capital projects on a pay-as-you-go basis, and so that positive change in net position will help for the planning for our 5-year CIP plan for our water and sewer fund. The village links in Reserve 22 did generate a positive change in net position of almost $70,000. Reserve 22 revenues did increase by $98,000, while expenses did decrease $55,000. And then the last bullet point, as of December 31st, all of those funds which had cash reserve policies, those funds exceeded their levels at year end. And so those are the financial highlights that I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of. Again, reading the management discussion analysis will give you a good overview of the financial statements. Just a couple things I want to highlight in the report. I'm just going to show you where they are. I'm not going to talk about them in depth. Is just if you go to packet page 339 through 342, you'll have what's known as our entity-wide statements. This is really the one time of the year that the village board would see a report that is on the village as a whole and shows kind of the financial picture for the village as a whole.
Do you have that somewhere that can be brought up on the screen, or you don't have that available for that?
I can try to put it on here.
Oh yeah, that's great.
So this is the, I'll show there. So this is the entity-wide statement of activities. This is really what is the governmental income statement. And so this shows the village basically broken down into two categories. One at the top is the governmental activities, or those activities that are more typically supported by tax revenues, and the bottom is our business type activities, which are the funds that are more supported by user charges, so our water and sewer fund or village links fund. So that statement, as well as the entity-wide balance sheet, again, presents the information on governmental activities versus business type. And so this is the one place to go to get the overall snapshot as the village as a whole and not on the individual fund basis. So the next thing I wanted to just highlight is information on the pension plans. I'm going to tell you it's on packet page 402 through packet page 404. And there's many other information on the pension funds within the report, but these pages are just where you can find information on the changes in the pension funds as well as the funded status of the plan within the annual financial report. And so as I mentioned earlier, the funded status of the police pension fund was 57.5% for the end of the year, and then the funded status for the IMRF fund was 92.45% for the year. And then the next
You mean the pension fund for the police is only 55% funded?
57, yes.
Why is that?
The village has always made its required contribution. The changes really have to do with a few things. One is investment returns. So if you don't hit your investment returns for the year, then your funded status would decrease. Also, the back end, I would say don't quote me on the year, the 90s or the 80s, the village was 100% funded in the pension fund, but as the state increased benefits through legislature changes, that brought the funded status of the plan down. So the village has always made what our required annual contribution has been. Just other factors have decreased that.
And IMRF's at 90?
92.
92. Wow, that's a big difference.
And then the next place to look starts on packet page 411. This is where if you want to find the almost line item detail for the general fund that looks at how we did compared to the original budget, the final budget, the actual, and the prior year, this is the statement that you want to look at to get that information. And then if you want the same information for the Village Links or Reserve 22, that starts on packet page 445. And then within this 300-page document that made your packets so very long this time, there is information on all the funds of the village and how they performed to their budget and to the prior year. That information is in there as well. So unless there's any questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Wilkie to discuss the auditor's report.
I got a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
So first of all, just going back to the police pension.
Yes.
If it's only at 55% and the state's not making their contributions or they're behind on their contributions, do we have to increase our contributions, or is that even allowed?
So the state doesn't contribute to our police pension fund. That's 100% funded by the village, by the employees that are in the fund, and by the investment earnings that there are. So one of the things that we have looked at with the help of the Finance Commission over the past, I'd say 3 or 4 years, is looking at a realistic investment return assumption. And so there were times before, I'd say before 2008, where an 8% return assumption for a pension fund was very realistic. In this market, it's not. So we've been gradually, the village board has gradually decreased the investment return assumption by 25 basis points each year, which has two effects. It lowers our funded status, because every 25 basis points you go down, you're going to decrease your funded status, but it also increases our annual contribution then to make up that difference. So the state law is that the pension fund has to be 90% funded by 2041. The village right now has a policy to be 100% funded by 2041. And so then each year our actuary takes what those assumptions are and puts them together in an actuarial model that then says what our annual contribution needs to be, given those assumptions, to make sure that we are that 100% funded by 2041.
And then why did our income tax go down?
Information from the Department of Revenue was that there was a state law change when the income tax rate went down back to the original level. There also was a change in the tax law which removed a cap on operating losses really for businesses, not so much individuals. But they said that change has had a significant impact on the amount of income tax revenue that they collect. And that doesn't just affect the village, that affects all municipalities as well as the state itself.
So when it went from like the 5% to the 3.75%?
Correct.
Oh, wow. Great, thanks.
I have a question.
Sure.
What do you think the implications would be for the village if the General Assembly does not pass a budget?
I mean, for the village, there could be some timing of when we would get some of our revenues. You know, our use tax, I think a year ago, was delayed. It was money that they owed us, but they just couldn't pay us without appropriation. So some of those revenues could be delayed. They will still be owed to us. Really, I think our exposure comes through more of, you know, grant dollars that we get and those things. Most of the things that the state would owe us would continue to be owed. We just might have delays in payment.
Would the delayed funding have to be, would we have to find some alternative source of that revenue if the funding was delayed for whatever period it might be?
No, that's why we have the reserves that we have in the general fund, as to weather those delays in payment and any of those concerns.
Thank you. What would be the implications if there was a property tax freeze that's been discussed as part of a budget agreement in Springfield?
So we looked at that, the last 5-year forecast that we did. That would have been in last September, and we can certainly update that again this September as we get ready for the budget. But I believe the impact, and the number that sticks in my head, we looked at the impact over 5 years, over our 5-year forecast. So if there was a property tax freeze, the 5-year number to the general fund would be about over $400,000 over 5 years. And then to the capital projects fund, it would be, I think, about $550,000 over that 5-year period that we would forego.
That would be a decrease in the revenue and the amounts that you've just reflected.
Correct.
Right?
And that it's depending on what property tax bill is approved, if it is approved.
Correct.
Because there's exemptions for public safety, so there's a lot of different variations out there.
That would be if there was a complete freeze. We couldn't raise a single extra dollar.
Do you think we would have to find alternative sources of revenue to fill that gap or that reduction associated with freezing the property taxes?
It depends the timing of the freeze. Again, that's one of the reasons that we do have reserves, especially in the general fund, that we can weather those timing issues. In the capital projects fund, it would mean shifting projects around, so that we would probably be delaying some projects out. You know, if it was a freeze that became more permanent, then that's something that we would have to look at, what impact that had on our financial health.
Okay. Finally, how would you characterize the change in the financial position in the village from 2014 to 2015, I guess?
You mean 2015 to 2016?
I'm sorry, 2015 to 2016.
I read what you're thinking. I believe we had a slightly larger surplus in the general fund in 2015 versus 2016, largely tied to that change in that income tax number. I mean, in 2015, that income tax number was doing really well, and it was at all-time highs, and that revenue just, as we said earlier, dropped about $220,000 over 2016.
But we still came out at a surplus, right?
Correct, we did.
Okay, thank you.
Impressive how on top of it you are.
Any other questions? Okay.
Well, that's perfect lead-in for me, because she does do an outstanding job. So I do want to first thank Christina, Lori Thomas, and the rest of the team. When we come in to do our audit testing, the books are fully adjusted. We get full cooperation with staff. I'm also happy to report we have no internal control findings, so that's always very important from the board's perspective. And the one piece I want to point out in that very large document is just 3 pages. On pages 1, 2, and 3, just before that management discussion and analysis that Christina covered, that is in fact our audit opinion. So the village received what we call an unmodified opinion. That is the highest level we are able to issue. That means the financial statements as presented are materially correct. So again, clear indication of a very clean audit process. No issues to bring forth to the board this evening. Any questions?
Any questions by the board? No, thank you, both of you. I know that it's a long process, so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam President, I move to accept the village comprehensive annual financial report for the financial year ending December 31st, 2016.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Trustee Enright, thank you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Fasulis?
Yes.
Trustee Enright?
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood?
Yes.
Trustee Ladisek?
Yes.
Trustee Pride?
Yes.
Trustee Senek?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. We're going to jump up to item I, Memorandum of Understanding with the College of DuPage, presented by Village Manager France.
Madam President, I'm going to recuse myself from this because I work at COD.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Pardon me?
Sorry, go ahead.
In summary, the police department has moved out of the Civic Center, and for the last few months, we have been evaluating options to potentially reuse some of the space available by that move. So over the same few months, the village and the College of DuPage have been exploring potential opportunities to share space in the Civic Center. COD has been interested in expanding business outreach programs and researching ways to create an innovation center concept. As we continue to proceed with relocating the Planning and Development Department to a portion of the first floor, the back of the Police Department and the current Planning and Development Department are available for another use. That's kind of been the focus of our research. So these discussions have been ongoing. They've been very positive, and we're to a point where we think we need to both commit to the next step, which is this proposed memorandum of understanding. The MOU would allow the village to oversee the design work for approximately 8,500 square feet, and COD will reimburse the village for all design costs up to $24,000. Staff has recently engaged Dewberry, that's the same architect that worked on the police station and did a lot of studies in this building previous to building the police station, is reviewing and designing first floor space for the Planning and Development Department and Finance, and COD has agreed to utilize Dewberry to ensure consistency with the overall design approach. Staff is requesting approval of this MOU as well as authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract with Dewberry to design this work. A little bit of background. So approximately 6 months ago, the College of DuPage and Choose DuPage were exploring the creation of an innovation center near downtown Glen Ellen. We looked at a variety of sites and kind of focused our attention on the Civic Center for a variety of reasons. This innovation center is now what they're calling the kind of Innovation DuPage. All potential partners working to create this innovation center believe that the Glen Ellen Civic Center is an ideal location for the center. Access to the train, vibrant downtown, high visibility of the site and the building are all reasons that we think this is a good partnership. So we are offering 8,500 square feet to at least look at designing and costing out some renovation expenses prior to getting into some type of intergovernmental agreement or license agreement for this space. So this isn't a final commitment, but it's a first step in that process towards evaluating that if it works for both parties or all parties. I think I covered the majority of it. COD is best positioned geographically, has the strongest funding partners and 20+ years of actual economic development experience through their Center for Entrepreneurship. The Civic Center is an ideal location, provided high visibility, great train access in a vibrant downtown setting. Innovation Center in downtown Glen Ellen could be a significant economic driver for the foreseeable future, would allow our business easy access to these services, and would create a partnership for future economic development initiatives. This opportunity, particularly the MOU before you tonight, has little risk and a huge upside, and therefore staff is in support of approving the MOU and exploring this more fully. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but that's the MOU is before you this evening.
Thank you. And then we have some College of DuPage trustees in the audience, so thank you for coming. Are there any questions from the board?
A couple comments. I think this would have been a more appropriate matter for a workshop. First of all, we discussed in a workshop, I believe, that an MOU could be out there, but The details of the MOU, and I think the timing of it, I think, is bad. The police department has just moved out. I'm on an advisory committee or subcommittee to review the movement of the deck chairs here in the building, and we've not completed that yet. So we really haven't identified our own needs for the village, and therefore then the needs for the residents. And then we're kind of jumping into this, so it's definitely putting the cart before the horse. My recommendation would be, suggestion would be to just hold off on this a little bit, whether it was a few weeks down the road or even just a couple of months down the road, until we have a better hold on what our needs are and what the costs for those are. As a subcommittee member for the Civic Center facilities, I have not been generally supportive of spending $250,000 to move the finance department to the first floor. This again would be something that would preempt that, and we haven't even gotten there yet. I can't support this at this time. I don't think it's fair to our residents to to reallocate things in this building that were agreed to historically when the taxpayers bought this building to move forward with this at this moment.
Can I just address one part of that? So the thought is that we've worked at this for 6 months, and we really don't know if it's going to work out without doing a little bit of the design work and figuring out what the cost of those renovation designs would be. So we can't really get to the next step to see if it's even going to work out for all parties until we have a little bit more information. So we thought the work group is waiting for some information in terms of costs for the renovation of the first floor to meet some of the village's needs. At the same time, we can do this work, bring that all back to the work group and work through the options. I think we've got a pretty good handle on the space we need for planning and development downstairs. We certainly know that planning and development space would be available if they move downstairs. So we have, I think we're further along than we were 6 months ago, a year ago. And this is, I think, a key next step to get us to be able to make that decision with our eyes wide open.
Well, I disagree that we have our eyes wide open with that. Former trustee O'Shea and I were on that subcommittee, and now he's gone. So someone else would need to get up to speed on the parts and pieces of the use of our own building for our own needs, and no one else is.
No, Trustee Pride was at the last work group meeting.
But I'm saying, Trustee O'Shea was involved with this from the start. So he said that we, Craig, well, I appreciate particularly his expertise. Wasn't on during the genesis of this, and did all the walkthrough. So while I definitely want to reutilize the Civic Center, for the best interests of our taxpayers that own it, at this point I'd like to see again what our needs are and what the costs are to us. If we reallocate some of this space and we move ahead with this engineering plan and the numbers come out, to facilitate this, we kind of, cut our own legs out from underneath us and pigeonhole us to spend the money, like to move finance downstairs and stuff, because we're going to be reallocating space on the third floor. We don't know what those costs are yet. The only cost that I've seen as one of those subcommittee members involved from the beginning has been nearly $250,000 to move finance to the first floor. So I applaud this effort, but I just think that's a little premature. And I think we need to get some answers first and then bring this back for a discussion at a workshop.
So, Trustee Kenwood, did you have something?
Sorry, yeah, but go ahead. I was going to ask a few questions.
Well, just to address Trustee Ladisick, I mean, basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just allowing them to do some additional work to see if it's going to work out.
Right, correct.
So, help me understand why you would want to delay that part of it.
Because we have not gotten through our portion of it yet. So it makes no sense if we determine that we can't and that we're not going to spend the money, that this board is not going to spend the money necessary to move finance downstairs, for instance, and that $250,000 piece of that puzzle, then this is a non-starter. You know, so it's senseless, it's a senseless waste of even the $24,000 in taxpayer money, because we're all taxpayers and constituents of the college as well.
So they
You know,
are
so-
looking at third floor, and they are looking at the previous police department side, correct?
Second floor.
Second floor, oh, I misread that one,
Yeah,
okay.
and there's a little bit of the third floor up here for shared space, but it's really the planning development space is that in the back of the police station.
Okay.
Right, I don't see any harm in waiting a little longer, and again, it may just be a matter of weeks or months before, you know, when is our next, when we reconvene the.
We're hoping to have a meeting next month.
Okay, so.
Who's doing the master plan? These guys are doing the master plan?
It's a combination effort of staff, the work group that includes 2 trustees and Dewberry.
And so the master plan is how we should build out for the future.
Correct.
For the next 20, 30 years.
Correct.
And if we did the master plan, is this gonna fit into that?
Yes.
So, in essence, they're picking up $24,000 of the development cost of the master plan.
Yes, but I think it's fair, Trustee Lattisak is right that this is a new concept, not necessarily part of the initial plan to reuse the building now the police department's out. So it's a unique concept. It's one that we've talked as a board about for some time, more in confidential conversations than in public, granted. But again, this is I think a necessary step at no cost to the village to get some more information to see if it's viable.
Let me clarify, if I might, because I don't believe the board has gone to executive session on this topic in particular. And so when you suggested confidential conversations, you just meant one-on-one conversations.
Correct.
And you answered to Trustee Fasoulis that we have a master plan and that this fits in the master plan. We don't have a master plan for this building. It's not been done yet. That's my point.
We have a plan to utilize the space that's available in the Civic Center. We've had it for a year and a half.
We have some concepts that have not been vetted by this board.
Okay.
So that's where I'm saying, let's get there, and then if this fits in with the master plan for the use of this building, for our own residents' needs, I'm all behind it. But that might be, it could be a month. It sounds like it would be at least a month away before we can intelligently make this decision.
Does this tie us to making any changes at all in this building to do this $24,000 stuff?
No, does not.
Well, I think that's my main question here. The way I read this for you, so I just need clarification. It sounds like if it's under 1.5 million, that there's the ability to proceed, or is there the commitment to proceed? So I'm not sure if we're being tied into just the 24,000 to do the design, and then after that, it's up to us to decide if we want to proceed with an innovation center or not. That wasn't clear to me in the MOU, whether they have the right, if the design is under 1.5, to just go ahead and we have to commit to doing it. Can someone clarify that?
Absolutely, there is no commitment. All parties involved know that this is a preliminary step, and once we have this information, then we have to decide if we want to proceed, and if so, come up with some license agreements and/or IGA to clarify all the business points, the term of a potential license agreement, the costs associated with such, and all of those type of details.
Okay, so Mark, that's just not clear to me in here, the sentence that says the college intends to proceed with construction and renovation within the Civic Center in the event the project costs for design and construction do not exceed 1.5. I guess the way you're explaining it, they're saying, hey, if it's over 1.5, that's out of our budget and we wouldn't do it. But I don't, if Mark feels, if we feel comfortable that means if it's 1 million and we decide no, we need the space, or no, we've got another option, then we are not required to proceed. Is that what you're telling me?
That is my understanding through all these discussions. And COD representatives are here shaking their head in agreement.
Yeah, that's not clear in the MOU to me, but I'm not an attorney, so.
We can clarify that, and I should make the point too that at kind of the 11th hour, through no fault of anyone's, COD staff asked to make one other change to this agreement, and it is, Attorney Matthews might be able to, in section 2A, it states, in the event the college seeks architectural services in excess of $24,000, the college will pay for those costs directly to Dewberry pursuant to a separate agreement. They have asked to just strike that sentence. Again, I think they want to just commit to that initial review period and costs, and then we'll huddle again and decide where to go from there.
Well, and
Well, just to kind of wrap up my questioning, I mean, from my vantage point, I wouldn't say as a board member that I have a clear understanding of what the master plan is for the Civic Center and what the dollars are associated with it. I understand there are some members that have been on the committee and maybe those plans are there. I just don't know if we really sat down and talked about them outside of maybe some one-off conversations, you know, when we have updates with you. So I would like to see, you know, I would like to understand that, obviously, before we go in and make a decision. I think an innovation center is a great idea. I mean, I'd love to have one. Certainly, innovation is leading the market. So I think it's a good idea. I just don't want to be committed to anything till I understand the master plan and see if there are needs, you know, directly with our staff and residents, you know, beyond the space we have before we would commit to something like this. It sounds like, even though COD is funding it, I mean, ultimately the taxpayers are funding this. Some of them are within our boundaries and some of them are outside of our boundaries.
So, okay, are there any other questions?
Just, I have a couple comments. One is that I do think we need to, as Trustee Ladisek indicated, we do need to move forward with prudence. And I think we've done that in other projects of this nature, most notably the pedestrian overpass and underpass at the train station, where we've invested some money so that we have the information so that we can make a good decision. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish here, which is to gather information so that we understand what the master plan will be. And in order to do that, sometimes we do have to make some expenditures so that we can make a good decision later on. We have the data to do that. I think this warrants that type of investment, because I think this project I am very supportive of, because it will provide economic development over the long term to the downtown central business district. It will create a partnership with the College of DuPage that I think will be constructive for both entities. I had the pleasure of touring a similar facility with some of the trustees from the College of DuPage, and I think there's a model out there that we can utilize to bring this to fruition that will benefit Glen Ellen and DuPage County. And I think we need to move forward with that and have essentially sort of the fortitude and the courage to do that, even though it requires some investment on our side. And that risk of that investment is being hedged, I believe, by the College of DuPage in this circumstance. And so I think doing this is completely consistent with what you're proposing, Pete, which is to gather some good data and make a learned evaluation of what the master plan here is. But I do think we want to make this investment now and partner with the College of DuPage in that effort. And I think if we do that, we're going to see the benefits of what is the right decision later on down the road.
Thank you, and I'll add to that, that this actually might bring out surprises that we're not aware of that would affect a plan for the rest of the departments or the floor plan. So it could change the master plan if we do not do it concurrently.
I agree with that completely.
Trustee Frye, do you have anything?
No, I was just going to comment. I somewhat agree with Trustee Ladisek in terms of not knowing where we're going with some of the renovation plans and moving people around, but I see the value of studying the alternative use at the same time for many of the reasons that Trustee Senek agreed to, because in my mind, I'd like to find out what is the value that could be created in the village by bringing this institution or this think tank to the village, and that may outweigh or contribute to the investment we want to make to move somebody out of the way to create that opportunity. So it's a give and take, and I definitely don't think we have any formidable answers on expenditures on what it's going to take to move people from point A to point B. You know, I was only in on one meeting in terms of looking at moving planning and development down from the second floor to the first floor. But I think there's value in understanding what the benefit of bringing COD and their resources to the building can be, so that we as a board can weigh what is the benefit we're going to get by bringing this institution, this opportunity into the Civic Center. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't look like it's worth it, then we don't have to make that decision. And in my mind, you know, most of the cost was being borne up front by the college, and we're protected up to $1.5 million worth of investment as tenants. But that's the way I read it. So.
I have a question for the COD group. The incubator people who would, whatever, stand up. Incubator people come here are not necessarily Glen Ellen residents, correct?
Not necessarily, certainly inclusive, right? And it's important.
In your business model today, where you have it, how many of those people are residents of the community you're in?
I do not have the figures. We've done a presentation to folks to the village before and to other cities and towns to show them exactly our economic impact on your village, and we can circle back with those numbers. But it's a good question, and it gives you some perspective. And this will be, we do a lot with Glen Ellen already. That's part of the draw, frankly. We're close, we're geographically close. But to talk, this isn't all new. We're not just hoping. There's a Center for Entrepreneurship. It's about 25 years old. In fiscal year 15 and 16, and this group would come here and we would expand upon what we're doing. In fiscal year 15 and 16, that group helped small businesses in DuPage County, greater DuPage County, close $192 million in governmental contracts.
And that, sorry to interrupt you, I do apologize respectfully, hopefully. Didn't answer my question though. It's DuPage County, not Glen Ellen. Not Glen Ellen businesses who are incubating.
No, absolutely, they're included in that. It's just not limited to only Glen Ellen.
Right. That's my point.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I can provide numbers specifically in terms of the center's impact.
I'd like to know how many, where you have the centers, how many are physically residents and businesses of that community.
That would be interesting. Also, if we had information on how many of our existing businesses are owned by Glen Ellen residents versus those that operate a business in the community that are not residents.
Right.
Because if we're incubating people that are non-residents to start a business in our community, it's a good for Glen Ellen.
Good, but it could be.
Could be the other way around.
And my point that I wrestled with this is, do we have current community organizations that are underfunded and always have to look for space and can't afford it, that we could be doing similar type of activities for them and giving them space in the building if it's there. So fundamentally, I think I'm sort of leaning towards what Trustee Ladisek said. I'd like to see how we're going to build this out, and then how these people fit into the versus let's design the space for them.
And these are definitely good thoughts. We also have to look at if the foundation is bringing people outside of Glen Ellen to our Glen Ellen, there's also an impact there that we're bringing more foot traffic to help support. So there's absolutely, these are all good different points. I don't think, the one thing that strikes me on this is that we're not committed to anything with the results. It is an informational exploring, and it's one that I want everyone to think strongly about, because if we're making decisions about the Civic Center and we have the opportunity to find out information up front, we might say, you know what, it would have fit in, but we're not willing to make those changes that needs to be made by this group. We also have our economic development, Meredith Hanna, who would be aware of those other organizations, and has she brought anybody forward, Mark, do you know?
No, not formally, but certainly there's some potential.
And we'll double check with her as well, but there's still additional room here. And I just want to make sure that this board doesn't lose an opportunity to gather information and making an overall decision, and that we're not just focusing on the internal departments and we miss out on an opportunity.
I would just add to that, I would encourage.
Gathering information mode, and part of the gathering during this process needs to understand what an innovation center is and what it does. Because some of the conversation I heard here would not be consistent with what I would consider an innovation center. So it'd be good for us to get on the same page on what that means.
Okay.
Which is why I asked that this be discussed at a workshop. I just don't think this is an appropriate venue for us to be addressing something like this. We're putting the cart before there's any time.
We're not making a decision. We're asking for them to gather information and then bring this back to a workshop, and then we can go through and we can get a presentation, we can learn what it's about, we can look at the results and figure out is it a good fit or not. Basically what they're asking for us here is permission to explore the Civic Center and figure out if they would even work here, and then come to us if it's working out and say, okay, now we're ready, we have our information, let's meet with you and let's present ourselves, because now they have the information that they need.
Right, well, apparently, we have enough square footage to meet their needs, or that would have been a non-starter from the get-go. So we've got that information, but we need to drill down on what our needs are first, and then what needs are in the best interest of our residents. I appreciate that we might be bringing more foot traffic into the building, but almost any use would. I mean, if we let the Brownie troops, meet here, they're going to go and buy slushies and ice cream in town. So I mean, that's going to generate retail sales tax revenue. So almost any use is going to generate foot traffic.
But I think what they're looking for is they know square footage, but since it exists already, they're looking for details. And the cost. Thank you.
But I think it may be at the expense of something long-term, and I'm not saying, a year or 2 years, but 3 to 5 years, of things that the community needs. And we won't know that because we won't know to say, here's what the building build-out looks like. And I know you have a concept of where you want to move people, but we don't have what that building build-out looks like. And then does them say, oh, we want this space. Well, when we take that space out, what do we lose for the community? That's all I think Pete's saying. I think I'm in total agreement. I don't think if it's a month or two, it's going to kill their project. And if it is, then they have to come forward and say, we don't have that time. We've got to make a decision. So instead of designing what they need, I think it's important that we know what we need going forward and where we're going. And it might not be moving just the finance department down there. It might mean that that's 4 meeting spaces for the community. Don't know. And because no one knows. And now we're going to say, we're just going to give it to them.
Well, but that's not what's being said here at all. I think what they're asking for is to concurrently work with the team that's working here to figure out the plans. So when Mark's working on the master plan, he's not excluding the space. He's working on the details, which he has been for months and months. We just haven't seen it yet, but he's working on it. And then concurrently, they will be presented at the same time of what is the master plan here. And we're not going to have a 100% master plan here, because we're going to do department by department and figure out the needs, and they can come back.
But you can't do department by department. You have to say, here's the whole build-out, and I'm going to move this. The build-out may be 5, 6 years, or 10 years, but you can't say, oh, we're just going to do this, and I'm going to move this and leave this empty or whatever. Yeah, if you do that, then take it. But it's the same type of concept we were talking about before. Unless you know where you're going to go, what direction do you start? Okay, I'm going to move the finance people downstairs, so then give them the space. That's a no-brainer. But until you know what you're going to physically do with this building for the next 20 years and what it should look like for the community, because once we do this, we're not going to touch it.
Well, I think we've been working on that, though. I mean, we've had Dewberry doing various studies of this building for 5 years. We have met with the board, we've met with the work group on multiple occasions to iron a lot of that out. The previous board encouraged us to seek partnerships, to explore different ways to utilize this space, and COD's not the only group we've talked to. We've talked to the Park District, we've talked to the YMCA, we've talked to various groups. Obviously this has been accelerated a little bit because the police station project was completed a few months ahead of time, and this gives us an opportunity to move a little quicker. But at the same time, our partners here that we're working with are encouraging us to move ahead. We're not the only alternative here, so I think we got to be cognizant of that. They might look at it a different space too, and we're not the only game in town. So I don't think this step precludes us from doing anything. Trustee Ladisek, I know you have not been real supportive of moving the finance department downstairs, but we're not committing even to that. I mean, this is a cafeteria approach. If that's something the board doesn't want to do, then we have to rethink and move in the other direction. But we can't make all those decisions until we have the cost estimates for this build out for the Innovation Center. And the way we looked at it was the space that they're looking for, not necessarily the first choice of the space they're looking for, is the back of the police department. There's no other use that I can think of that would go in the back of a police department. There's cells, there's locker rooms, there's some older classroom. It's not high leasable space.
Right. All those are finishes that are easily removable, though, Mark.
True.
I mean, I can tell you that.
But
that's what I do.
But I don't think that we've got people knocking on the door for that particular space. Now, the planned development space, that's second floor, yes, there's options there. But I think what Joe just touched on a little bit of what the entrepreneurial Center for Entrepreneurship can do is incredible. I mean, you bring that use to our downtown. There's people coming downtown to get their services. We're expanding on that. There's small businesses that start in this building and then grow into our downtown potentially. I mean, that could be a real economic boom, and I don't think we want to miss the chance to at least see if it's feasible.
You said that this was presented to the staff, okay? We haven't had that presentation. There's some concern here this evening that even that use might be a question, not just the use of the space, but even the concept of the use, okay? I don't know what the Innovation Center, I tried to do some research on, some of the names of organizations that we were given, and I just was, flabbergasted at all these different uses. I kept coming down to how is this going to benefit our residents? Again, other than having some additional foot traffic in this building. So I would like to hold off on this. I would like to have a presentation at a workshop, from Joe, I think you said his name was, and give us some of that data. How could this benefit us? How could this benefit our residents? Before we, again, start putting, even $24,000 worth of the cart before the horse.
The only thing I'd like to add is that this is a tremendous opportunity for this village. And because I understand this concept, and if you don't see that, it is because you don't understand it, and maybe the workshop that you're proposing is necessary, because what they're suggesting would increase economic development in our village, in our county, in our region over an extended period of time, and actually keep talent in Illinois that might otherwise move outside the state to look for the same economic opportunities that can be provided here. And the fact that we should be privileged to think that they would select us as a partner to do this with, because it will make Glen Ellen effectively the Silicon Valley of DuPage County if they accomplish even half of what they intend to or are trying to. And there is a model out there that has already done this that would suggest that what they're proposing is achievable, and for us to participate and help them will help the College of DuPage, it will help us. It will help our county, it'll help our state, it'll help our region. So the reluctance of the board to make what is, in my estimation, a modest and risk-free investment of this disappoints me more than I can say. And I would encourage you to give some thought to the idea that to make this step with them, who have some experience with this, and move forward. I sit here and I listen to why we don't have economic development in Glen Ellen. And one of the things that I hear is because we're unwilling to make the steps to do that. here is an opportunity to make a small and risk-free step to do that. And I hear reluctance from the people who are advocates of economic development. So I simply would, I know we're going to do this, because I know the more that you learn about this, the more you're going to understand what a great opportunity this is. So I know we're going to get there.
I would like to learn
But
that.
I'm telling you, make this step sooner rather than later, because Mr. Franz is correct. We're not the only game in town, and I'm sure there are other communities that would love this opportunity to partner with them. So,
Madam President, I'm not against it, and I can support it. I just want to know how this fits when everything comes in. I want to know, here's what the mass, here, and this is how it flows over, and this is what we might be giving up if we continue down the road, because this is only a design.
Absolutely.
And we're not committing more to that. But
And
I
that's
want
completely
you know
fair.
what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Overlay on it, and if we can get that, then
I'm almost
can
trying
support moving
to,
forward.
and I understand how this is a little bit different approach than we normally do. And I was sitting here, and I'll probably end up saying the wrong example, so just forgive me. But I'm gonna put it out there anyways. I was just trying to figure out what else do we do like this, and it's almost like when we hire an engineer for a street project, but we don't have the street project done yet. They get the information, then they come back, and then we get the contract. And that's kind of what I'm almost equating this to, which is if we can get the support for COD and staff who has worked on this, just to get us the information that you're looking for. That's what this is about. It's not about making decisions. It's not about making a commitment. Just getting the information to come back to present the overall concept. They're just not there yet without this step.
Well, with a street improvement plan, we have a master plan, and we also have the capital improvement plan.
And I told you it's the wrong example.
Right, okay,
But
so it's not like that. Okay, we have that plan. We don't have a plan, again, a master plan for the use of this building. Manager Fran, you said that this has been ironed out for a while. It's not, nothing's been ironed out. It's very wrinkly, what the future use of this building is. And I don't want to pigeonhole us, and I know we're not necessarily being pigeonholed, although I do have a concern based on what Trustee Kenwood brought out, that maybe there's some language in the memorandum that needs to be softened. I think that this is just a little premature, and maybe it's only a month away, till we can come back. And I appreciate the concept, but I would like a presentation at our board at a board workshop, so that I can get my hands around the concept. And then this $24,000 then is a no-brainer for that next step.
I think if we get that and the overlay, and then they give the ad-up workshop, and then when they see the overlay, they come in and give us a whole dog and pony show on the concept, we can say if we like the overlap, and then we can decide if we're going to go forward with it.
Exactly.
I think we could do both at the same time. And is there any way in our voting on the memorandum of understanding that we can simply request that this presentation be made before there's a start on design work with Dewberry, so that we have a chance to get the understanding and the knowledge of what the intent of the use is and what the intent of their design is going to be. It gives us an ability to get that knowledge and also use that knowledge in our review of what we're doing with our own internal use. I do think that the work or the effort that comes through this would benefit the community, and it's kind of hard to determine that right out of the gate. But I think long-term, having people cycle through this community for this use is going to show long-term benefits. And I think the quicker we get that started, the better. And I'd like to know what their intended use for the space is as we're evaluating what our intended use of the space is at the same time, and where we determine to put people. Maybe out of this, we decide to rearrange the space for the benefit of their use and for the benefit of us. That could save us dollars, could cost us dollars, and those are opportunity dollars that we choose to spend to get greater value in the end. And I think we've got to have both sides of the puzzle before we make that decision. Otherwise, we design ourselves into one way, and we may not have looked at something that we need to be able to provide this to another user, whether it's COD or it's some other third party.
So you are proposing that the board receive that presentation, so if we agree to memorandum.
I would just propose that we agree to the memorandum of understanding that the first item of business is that we gain that information Pete's looking for before they start off on design plans with Dewberry. It's almost gonna happen anyway. They're gonna basically give the same presentation to Dewberry. But we have that opportunity to sit down with them right away and dialogue and get the information that we're looking for before they start work on the plans. I don't see that it costs us anything out of pocket, so I have no reservation there. And if it goes south, we have the ability to back out anyway.
Would the board be agreeable to use the work group for that?
That's exactly what I was going for, is, so Trustee Ladisick, you're on the work group, and Trustee Pride, since we do not have a meeting for a couple of weeks, or that one that we could fit in a presentation, if the rest of the board is agreeable, those two would get the presentation since they're on the work group. The rest of the board would get one at a future date. Okay, perfect.
Well, again, I still think we're behind the eight ball on that because the work group has changed since it started, and the board hasn't seen any dollars associated with even the some of the concepts that staff has brought to us. You know, I know you supported before you, I think when you were elected and not yet seated, you told me there's no way you're going to support spending $250,000 to move finance downstairs.
No, they presented that even when I was a trustee, and we said back to the drawing board. So, I mean, we need something, we need substance, we need, you know, if they come back with $250,000 because there's actual structural work or information or things that need to be done, and it's actually assigned to different areas, we can take a look at that, but not just an overall, hey, it's gonna cost us $250,000 to move, give us the money. That's absolutely correct. So, if, what we're gonna do here is, we're going, hold on, Trustee Kenwood, I need to ask our attorney one thing.
Yes.
So, do you understand what they're asking for? They're asking for an invitation to the presentation with Dewberry in order for this to get started.
And we can fit that into this MOU. One of the things I was going to request is that if one of the board members makes a motion to approve entering into an MOU, that it includes the language subject to attorney review. And in fact, the attorney retained by the village, or by the college, who I've been talking with about the MOU, he and I need to talk about at least one of the provisions. Like, we can certainly talk about that and including that in the MOU. Remember, the college is not
acted upon this.
Has not acted upon this, and I'm not sure when that would come up, but I can certainly work something out with their attorney in advance of that. The only thing that I would add to the discussion is this is called an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, because it's not a contract. And if we had set out to enter into a contract agreement, I would be requiring that, well, not only do we have to think about engineering, but we would have to think about splitting, how cost sharing for construction would be, about what any costs attributable to the use of the space would be, and how the village would get reimbursed for such costs, whether there would be a fee. Now, this would, I would be proposing, if this goes ahead, like we've done with the chamber, I would consider this to be really execution of a license agreement, the terms of which are numerous and would have to be worked out over an extended period of time with the college. So, that being said, whatever the intent of this memorandum of understanding is between me and the other attorney was that neither the college nor the village were committing to anything other than we would advance some costs for engineering, and the college would reimburse us for that. And the most that will be is $24,000, and that doesn't necessarily get used up. But under no circumstances will we contribute more than $24,000. So
And
that's
I know, sir, they will pay us more back for it. So in essence, they're paying 24. Yeah.
Trustee Kenwood, did you have another question?
Well, I'm not sure I follow all the to-dos here. So number one, I think someone else should make the motion since I think I was assigned to it. But number two, in terms of this work group concept, again, I don't know that I could hear everything. But as a part of gathering information, you know, we need a presentation on what an innovation center is so we understand what it is we'd be signing up for. It's more that, to me, it's more than just the design and the numbers. It's what is this thing going to be, and what good is it for our community? So we're on the same page. I think I heard someone refer to us being the next Silicon Valley of DuPage County. You know, that to me could be an exaggeration, and not, you know, until we know what it is being proposed. I just don't, you know, I want to make sure we know that before we start making statements about what this could be.
Hold on 1 second before you make the motion. I know, I haven't asked the public yet. So are there any questions or comments by the public? Okay. And before we make the motion, my apologies, we should have introduced, do you mind standing up and introduce
Your team.
your team?
Joe Cassidy, Dean of Continuing Education Extended Studies. We have Marianne Millish from the President's Office and also in charge of government relations for the college. Earl Dowling is Vice President of Admissions for the college, and not formally a part of our team at the college, but with Rev 3 and part of Choose DuPage, who's a partner also in this effort. It's not just the college. Nick Zito is here from Rev 3, which is already an incubator pathway for new businesses in the area.
Great, thank you so much.
And thank you for your time.
Oh, absolutely. And anyway, any other questions or comments? Okay, can I have a motion,
Madam
please?
President, I move to approve and authorize the village manager to execute a memorandum of understanding with the College of DuPage and to enter into a contract with Dewberry for design service associated with renovation of 8,500 square feet of the Civic Center to be reimbursed by the College of DuPage in total cost not to exceed $24,000 contingent upon attorney review.
Thank you. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Senate. Can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Pasulis?
Yes.
Trustee Senek?
Aye.
Trustee Kenwood?
Yes.
Trustee Ladisek?
No.
Trustee Pride?
Yes.
And then Trustee Enright's recused. So the motion passes. Thank you, and hopefully the team can understand we're supportive, just confused. So we are very much looking forward to the presentation, to moving forward and learning about this concept. I think we have a little bit of communication on both of our ends to really make sure that we understand how to support both the town, COD, businesses, and learn how to be good partners. Thank you so much. Okay, moving to item H, the Residential Refuse and Recycling Program, presented by our Assistant Village Manager.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, good evening. Tonight before you is a discussion and consideration of a contract for our refuse and recycling program in the village. This will be for a potential 5-year contract. And just as a matter of background, back in August of 2012, the village board initiated a 5-year contract with Public Services, and that contract is set to expire here on August 1st. And so at the board's direction, staff solicited competitive requests for proposals in early April, and then in early May we received proposals from several haulers. The bid documents went out to 9 total haulers, and 4 of them submitted proposals to our request. At the June 12th Village Board workshop, the board will recall that we went through a summary of those proposals that were received and the pricing thereof. We also focused on primarily 6 policy questions in seeking the board's direction on. One was the Monday versus a multi-day, 4-day-a-week collection, and the differences in pricing between the two. The second question was related to customer billing. Third policy talked a little bit about the electronic waste curbside recycling program. And then we talked, the policy question number 4 was on the curbside composting program. And then 5 was the cleanup week, whether or not the board wished to reinstitute that. And 6 being the RFID pay-as-you-throw automated program. Based on that discussion that the board had, the direction we received from the board was a general preference for a Monday, maintaining the Monday collection, but did request some additional information and time to discuss that further. Outsourcing billing, the direction from the board was to forego that for the time being in accordance with staff's recommendation. And if you'll recall, the savings was about $30,000 staying with the Monday collection and outsourcing billing. But at this point in time, when you talk about the utility billing process being a component of that, it was staff's recommendation that we hold off until we get our sort of cellular electronic water meter reading process and equipment in place in the future years. That's the time to really talk about outsourcing billing to a cost benefit to the village. The sticker-based curbside composting program for the electronic waste collection program, the board expressed a desire to add that to our program. Composting, discussion was on 8-month versus 12-month. The board's direction was to offer or begin offering the 12-month program under this new contract, which would be year-round, and it would go from every other week in the winter months. Cleanup week, the general consensus was to reinstitute the cleanup week at an approximate cost of $90,000, which will be about $12 per year per household. And so then we talked a little bit about the RFID process, but the board preferred to hold off on that for the time being and wait till the market matures a little bit more and potentially explore maybe a pilot program perhaps in future years. Following the village board's workshop, staff reached out to both Republic, who had the lowest responsive proposal for Monday-only collection, and then also Advanced Disposal, who had the lowest responsive proposal on the 4-day-a-week collection, and requested or offered them the opportunity for a best and final offer from both parties. Republic, as you'll see in your packet, maintained its original offer. However, they wanted to submit a proposal to the board on an alternate pricing scenario, in which case it would be a reduction in year-one pricing, which we'll get into in a little bit more detail, about 3.8%, in exchange for an agreement to go on a 3% CPI fixed increase in years 2 through 5 of the contract. And we'll get into a little more analysis about that in a bit. Advanced best and final offer for the 4-day collection. They came back on the senior backdoor collection, reducing its price to $18 per month in year 1. We have about 28 seniors total signed up for that program. That was a question and a concern from the board, and so Advanced did respond to that. Clean Sweep or Take-All program, the original proposal or alternate proposal from Advanced, they no-bid that program. And as a best and final offer, they agreed to offer that with the specified pricing that we'll talk about in a little bit. Curbside composting program, they originally no-bid the 12-month program, that being Advanced. As part of their final offer, they agreed to maintain and to offer that year-round program in accordance with the village's specifications. The Advanced as well, just a point of clarification, the meats and the soiled papers, which was be an enhancement to the composting program, they were unable to provide that service at this point in time. But so just that's clear that neither Republic nor Advanced are able to provide that additional enhancement that the Environmental Commission was seeking initially. Motor oil collection is a minor deviation from Advanced proposal. Currently we provide and would under a Republic's proposal motor oil collection at the curbside in appropriate containers and under a certain weight. So Advanced was unable to provide that service. That would be discontinued if we go to a 4-day-a-week collection. The route map, we also sought Advanced proposal for a 4-day route map in terms of how the town will be divided geographically. That's attached in your staff memo as well to kind of get a sense of how the town is divided up. Just moving on to just some general points of consideration before we get into the pricing the board may wish to consider and as you evaluate whether or not you would like the community to stay as a Monday-only collection or whether or not to proceed to a 4-day-a-week collection. There are certainly, like anything else, there are certainly some pros and cons to it. Maintaining a Monday-only collection, needless to say, staying with the same hauler on a Monday collection is going to cause the least disruption to residents. That's an obvious point. Although Advanced, certainly reputable, has taken on municipal clients same size and larger and new accounts, certainly capable of transitioning. Fair to say the first 60 to 90 days of any time a municipality is taking on a new hauler, there's going to be some transition period, some uptick in resident complaints for missed pickups. If for nothing else, then there's a lot of routes in town, and most towns that are very straightforward. Some are very idiosyncratic. There's nooks and crannies, and so in the first couple months of the contract, you will see a little bit of an uptick on that, but nothing that's insurmountable. And the fact that we're not changing out containers, all the containers, and we're not outsourcing billing is certainly going to buffer, I think, some of those service issues or discrepancies early on. Switching to a 4-day-a-week collection, kind of another point to consider too, may lead to some, or probably will lead to some inevitable frustration from some neighborhoods, from some residents who prefer the Monday collection day. It is a convenience. It is a luxury that probably some do value, and we might get into some, I'll call them accusations that perhaps there's favoritism going on by the village if appointed officials or elected officials live in the primo Monday area of town, right? Even though nothing of that nature has happened, Advance proposed their route map without any of our influence. So just for the record. Also, too, for residents that enjoy a Monday collection, usually their family parties or block parties are on the weekends, and most folks do their landscape waste and lawn mowing on the weekends. And so certainly some of them probably do enjoy being able to get rid of their trash on Mondays rather than having to wait until Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So that is a point of consideration. We will probably early on in the contract see a slight increase in public nuisance complaints or code violation complaints from residents. Right now with Monday only collection, we probably will see in the first 60 to 90 days some folks putting their cart out too early, greater than 24 hours, 2 days, 3 days early, to where we'll have to kind of re-educate and potentially have just a kind of a greater impact to our code enforcement folks of going out and reminding residents and issuing warnings and things of that nature. So we'll probably see an uptick in complaints early on, but something that should dissipate over time. Existing yard weight stickers, that's just, again, a minor inconvenience, I think, to residents, but it is one to consider. Their current resident or landscape weight stickers, they have to kind of come in and get reimbursement for those as we transition to a new hauler, being that we'd be using new stickers and new pricing and the like. And coming with that would be the increased customer service demands on cashier staff in our finance department, so that would be a consideration as well. With just overall, with moving to a 4-day-a-week collection, we have 30 days until, a little over 30 days until the contract expires and we would transition to a 4-day-a-week. From staff's perspective, we have some concerns about the notice period to residents, and we can certainly get out we think, sufficient in partnership with the hauler, get out the notice in advance and as much sort of market penetration that we can with respect to newsletters, e-newsletters, and kind of educating the public on this coming transition. Probably we'll hear, I think, some complaints or dissatisfaction from residents for what they may perceive as a lack of a public notice period or formal public comment period to where they had a chance to come to the board and really deliberate further and provide you more direct feedback, although we did certainly do a survey, as the board recalled, back in December, trying to get a sense of where residents might be on this particular issue. Lastly, to point to consider, if the village transitions away from a Monday-only collection, it's unlikely that the village would ever be able to bring this back to town. You saw the pricing submitted from the haulers to provide a Monday-only collection, absent a 10-year, 15-year contract where the hauler can depreciate and amortize their assets over the life of that term of a contract. It's very cost prohibitive for a hauler to come up with the capital to service a one-day-only collection in the community. And so we saw that, and so it's something to think about is if we do go away, it's probably a very difficult thing to buy back. Sorry, getting more dry here. Moving to pricing. The original proposals that we talked through at the June-October workshop, again, Republic was the lowest responsive proposal for Monday collection. 4 days a week was Advanced, was the lowest responsive proposal. On that aspect of the program, it was about approximately $105,000 cost difference in year one, which equates down to about a $14 per household per year cost to the resident. If we look at their best and final offers, which is Table B in your packet, again, to summarize, Republic's proposal is a year one approximately 3.8% discount or $45,000 in year one in exchange for a minimum 3% CPI increase in years 2 through 5 of the contract. Also, in advanced proposal, you'll see that it slightly came down because of the senior backdoor collection cost has been reflected at $18 per month for that subscriber. So factoring these revised pricing, including just the base program, which is your weekly collection program, and then of course the variable component, which is stickers, you're looking at about a cost difference of approximately a little over $60,000 difference between the original proposals and the best and final offer proposals with respect to the core program. So the estimated cost difference per household decreases from $14 per year down to approximately $8 per household per year. Some other points of consideration with respect to evaluating both haulers' proposals. Curbside e-waste collection was something the board expressed an interest in implementing here in the community, and so these two proposals side by side gives you a sense of their pricing, and Advance came in quite a bit lower on the curbside e-waste collection program, so that's something to weigh as well. The Cleanup Week Take-All program, which would occur every 2 years. The last one we had was in 2014, so reinstituting these programs. Republic had a $175 per ton price point. Advance kind of had a tiered program where the first 300 tons were at $150 per ton, and the next, or anything above 300 would be at $175 per ton. Our historical average is around 500 tons that we have we've seen in prior years when this program was in existence, and so you can see the difference here between the haulers of $87.5 for Republic and $80,000 for Advanced, which is about $1 per household for that year. Something to consider as well with respect to Republic's proposal. So there's the one policy point of, is it Monday collection or is it 4-day-a-week collection? If the board prefers a Monday collection, there's kind of a secondary decision to make with respect to Republic is, do we take their original best offer or is it more advantageous for us as a community from a 5-year basis to accept their 3% CPI fixed in exchange for that year one discount? And so did a little quick analysis on this with the assistance of Finance Director Coyle. And this is not in your packet, but we put this together today. We looked at the contract from a 5-year basis. And this first row here, Republic's best and final offer at 3% CPI equates to approximately $8.3 million. So what we asked ourselves is, well, what does CPI need to be to actually beat that cost using the original offer, which is current pricing, today's current pricing. So as we see here, Republic's original offer at 3% CPI, naturally, because their pricing is higher in year one, it's going to be higher at $8.4 million. But as it goes down on CPI 1.3, we still show that over a 5-year basis, it's $8.3 million, $8.34 million, which is still higher than their best and final offer. We even see at 1%, there's still a slight differential in terms of not being lower than their best and final offer at $8.318 million. So really what the story tells you is CPI would need to be below 1% for the next 5 years to make their original pricing more attractive than their best and final offer. So something to consider if the board is wanting to go down the route of maintaining a Monday collection. That concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions. We have haulers here today, also to field any questions from the board as well.
All right, thank you. Al, are there questions by the board?
Wait a second. So for the original price, this is over the 5-year period. It's it was $8.3 million over the 5-year period without adding in CPI changes.
So the best and final offer, so without adding CPI, it would be, their original proposal would be, it's over a 5-year basis, $8.2 million, if no CPI occurred.
No CPI,
okay. Other questions?
What's the probability of the CPI being below 1% over the next 5 years?
very good question. I think we think it's unlikely.
I think so too.
Okay, are there any questions by the public? Are there comments by the board?
I just have one comment. I thought this was extraordinarily well done by the staff, and I want to compliment Al and Mark, Christina, and anybody else who was involved in this. I thought this was one of your better efforts in educating us about the options that we have to make a selection that's in the best interest of our residents. So thank you.
Great. So we have a couple decisions to make.
President McGinley, I
yep.
do have people that have filled out sheets that would like to speak. I'll call them up.
Thank you, absolutely.
Bob Pfister from Advanced Disposal.
Good evening again. Bob Pfister from Advanced Disposal. I'm the Municipal Marketing Manager. I thought that was a very good analysis. I'm not going to go into a lot of it, but one thing I do want to point out with respect to the analysis there, that is still $60,000 a year above our number that we came in with 4-year number. So even though there's analysis there on Monday only, we came in with our best offer the first time, and it's still $60,000, and we have the lower CPI. So over that time, the difference is going to get higher again. So it's at least $300,000 over the course of the year. Just a couple points I want to make is that, you know, we listened at the committee of the whole meeting, and we think we heard what you wanted in the contract. We gave the best organics program. It's free to the residents if they want to use it during the 8-month ride-along program. They could put organics in with their bags and their cans at no cost to them. And then we expanded it because we heard you that we would do a 12-month program for carts every other week. So we have the best organics program that you asked for there. Also, we heard that you wanted to keep the cleanup week. So we gave you the best, most cost-effective price on the cleanup week. And we made sure that the lowest rate was for that 300 tons so that you got that every single year. Okay, so we gave you the best rate on that. We also heard for the senior discount, senior back door, that we made sure there was no increase for those seniors in the senior back door. Lastly, I just want to point out that there should be no concern over any type of transition with Advanced Disposal. We have the trucks, we have the men, we are ready, willing, and able to haul this community starting August 1st. And one last point I'd like to point out is that this contract starts on a Tuesday, which means this village will have their last pickup on a Monday, and we will start then on a Tuesday. So for that first week, the village residents for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday will actually get 2 pickups that week. So the transition is very, very easy for us on this, and it works out really, really well for the residents. So just to close, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present our RFP, to present our programs, and we think we have the best program, and I ask you for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
I have a Bill Kinney.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Kenny. I'm with Lakeshore Recycling Systems. I want to thank President McGinley, trustees, village manager friends, especially Al over here for including us in the process. And regardless of the outcome, we're grateful for that and appreciate that opportunity. So thank you again. Just wanted to give you a very quick, this probably will be the quickest, best elevator pitch I'll make in my career. A couple quick things. First of all, brief history of our company. We started in 2001. The founder of the company is Wunderkind, who worked his way up at Waste Management to Vice President of Sales in Chicagoland, and essentially had a sword from the stone moment where he thought, well, I can do this better. I can do it better. So at that time, he had one investor. We bought one Packer truck, and very much through grassroots effort, we built ourselves into what we are today, which is a fleet of nearly 300 trucks and almost 1,000 employees. Along the way, we merged with one of the largest material recovery facilities in the Midwest, where we process around 30,000 to 3,300 tons daily at just that one facility. In that time, actually in the last 5 years, I don't believe that there's another hauler that's added as many municipal contracts as us. We've lost none. We've added as many, if not more than any other local hauler, which we're very proud of. Our blueprint is different than our competitors, and our competitors who we respect greatly. We don't own any landfills, so it's important for us to divert as much recyclable as we can out of the waste stream. We process about 1.2 million tons annually of waste. We get anywhere from 30 to 35% of that is recyclable. We just built a state-of-the-art facility on the west side of Chicago, right around Harlem and 55 there, where we process about 20 tons an hour of single-stream recyclables. That's why I feel that our rebate program and this RFP is one of the most advantageous. Along with that, we just invested money into what's called an aerobic digester, which we were just permitted for and should be up and running within the next week. So when you talk about organics, no other company in this area and actually in the country has one of these digesters, which will allow us to load that with 20 tons of organics, primarily food waste, but other stuff too, and process that overnight into 16 tons of a soil amendment, which we already have a market for. So we feel like we put our money where our mouth is in terms of recycling and organics better than anybody else. In terms of a quality, quantity, value for value proposition with the village, again, we feel like quantitatively, if you add in the rebate portion of the RFP, we're right there in terms of price. In terms of quality, we have scales of economy. We're right here with your neighbor next door in Wheaton, where we've done a great job over the last 9 months. Hopefully they would tell you the same thing. I believe they would. In terms of RFID, if the village ever does decide to go that route, we are the only hauler in this area with that capability, and it's not something you can just do. It's something that we had to beta test for, well, actually probably close to a year to get that running successfully. So again, I'm here with respect to my competitors, with respect to the village, to appeal to the village to reconsider the vote tonight and consider letting us come in and talk to you a little bit more about our company and see what we can do for you. So again, thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Sorry, I got a question. What would the rebates be? Like, what would you estimate the rebates would be for recycling?
I believe we're 100% of what we haul from the village.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
I have a John Clifford from Republic Services.
Good evening. I'm John Clifford with Republic Services out of the Elgin office, and I'd like to thank the President and Board for allowing me the opportunity to review our proposal as well. I think really what drove us to continuing on with the proposal for the one-day service was that when the contract went out for RFP back in 2012, the village was steadfast in their decision to continue on with that one-day-a-week service, that there was no deviation off of that. At that time, we went ahead and made the decision to make a sizable capital investment in the community, where we went out, we wanted to go ahead and introduce the compressed natural gas vehicles, or CNG vehicles as they're known today, and at the same time maintain the communities that we serviced collection schedules. So it was a major capital investment for us to go out and do that at that time, which in turn, in foresight, was a good decision because it allowed us to continue on with maintaining a price that, if you took a look at the proposals that came back, the next lowest price for the same level of service is $1 million a year more than the cost that we're able to provide this service that the village is accustomed to receiving. So those are some of the things that we take a look at when we're servicing the communities. You know, so from that perspective, we feel that we really didn't leave any money on the table. Also, what allows us, and I think we put in part of our proposals, we actually bid every one of the alternatives. And we're open to pursuing some of these other avenues that the village took a look at down the road as we continue on in partnership with the village. Pay-as-you-throw is an interest. We have the ability to go ahead and selectively take a pilot program of a particular section of the village and work through that with the village as well. So we come to the table with the experience. We've been servicing the village for the past 29 years. We know all the intricacies of the residents. 90% of the people did come back and prefer the Monday post-weekend collection service only. So we stayed in that same spirit when we put our proposal together and presented it to the board. And you know, a lot of the drivers as well all feel that, you know, they're part of the community as well. They again, know the intricacies of the residents. And the only thing I would say in regards to changing a service, a premium level of service, at that point, everybody talks about a smooth transition. It'll be a disruptive transition at you know, for quite a while. And I think that disruption will stay with the community's mindset long after the difference of the marginal difference in price for switching that service will, you know, will linger around for quite a while longer. So we appreciate the opportunity to continue servicing the village, and we'd like to continue that partnership. And I'm here for any other questions that may be asked. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Did you say that your trucks run on natural gas?
Yeah, and that was the evidence for the village putting the proposal together to require that anybody that bid the contract to operate compressed natural gas vehicles. So reduces the carbon footprint within a community, as well as it's 90% quieter than the conventional diesel equipment that's out there. So we kind of pioneered that a little bit early on, and it's taken off. In a lot of the communities are now requiring that compressed natural gas vehicles be part of the equipment used. So you know, we saw that years ago and made that investment up front. So.
And where's your stuff processed? Is it like processed around here, or does it go to a different location?
Yeah,
your refuse and your recycling?
Yeah, it goes to a transfer station and then gets trucked out to landfills, various landfills throughout the region. So from a disposal and recycling standpoint, we're you know, locally, as far as the same locations we've been taking the material for you know, the last 25 years. So.
When do you foresee being able to offer curbside composting that would include meats and that of that nature?
Well, you know what? Right now, a lot of the facilities that are taking in the compost right now are awaiting some legislative changes to take place, and you know, they're more than willing to, and we actually didn't put it in our proposal, they're more than willing to come in, talk to the board and the environmental committee to keep them abreast of as those develop, you know, what time frame that'll be. So right now, there's no local facility to take that and process it. They just can't take it. So, but as soon as they can, then we'll just add that to the mix if the board desires. So,
okay. Thank you.
The raccoons will take it.
They've proven that.
Do you guys have natural gas running trucks too?
Yes, we run compressed natural gas. We have compressed natural gas filling station at our Batavia location, and we would start here with compressed natural gas on August 1st. So, same thing.
Thank you.
anything else?
Is
Thank
there
you.
anybody else?
That's
No?
it.
Okay. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak on the subject? Okay. So for the village board, we need to start off with our decision. Anybody wants to make comments about Monday versus 4-day before we get into any further decisions?
I for one, not gonna change my opinion that we stick with Monday.
Monday, okay.
personally prefer Mondays as well. I've been polling as many residents as I can since we discussed this. The only hesitation I got from a resident was, well, would our area be Monday? So, which I couldn't tell them that. But I think the general concern I had from residents was, even though we divide the town up in quarters, there's still going to be garbage cans as you drive through town, depending on what direction you drive. You're going to see garbage cans through town. The other point that was brought up was, we have scrappers, which is great that they come and take these recyclables from our curbs, except for TVs and other electronics, but that we're going to have scrappers running through our town, 4 days a week in various areas. I think as again, it comes with an additional cost. I think that if we're really looking to cut costs, that maybe we cut out the lump sum, the take-all event to help to offset some of this expense and bring us down to where some of the other vendors are that are offering 4-day-a-week pickup.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Pride.
Yeah, I tried to talk to as many people as I could just to kind of find out if they were, in favor of the Monday or 4-day-a-week pickup, and I get the idea that we'd be bringing trucks in and out of, Geneva and Roosevelt, but I think in the end, the comment I got back was they prefer Monday, and the idea of scrappers driving around here 4 days a week does not thrill me. So I'd be in favor of staying with Monday.
Okay, Trustee Senek?
I think it's just sort of an interesting kind of issue in the sense that it poses the question to us as a board that whether we have sort of a duty to take the least costly alternative and whether that's consistent with our, if you will, fiduciary duty to our residents is to reduce the cost as much as possible. Or is it a question that our residents are willing to pay a certain premium for the services that they want, even if that costs more than what is the least alternative? And the feedback I've gotten is consistent with what I think the experience of everyone has been, which is our residents are willing to pay more for Monday service. And so even if I might not necessarily think that's something that I would do, one of my obligations is to sort of reflect the will of the constituency. And if that's what they would like to do, and I think that's universally true, then certainly I support the Monday-only collection.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Enright?
I shouldn't be a trustee because it's hard for me to make decisions like this because you guys all seem like nice guys and everything. But I did ask around and everybody said they want to keep Mondays, so.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Kenwood?
Well, I asked around and most of mine were, it really wasn't that significant to them, whether it was Monday or other days. I think you guys were partly there when I was asking people, but I do think it's probably late in the game to change, and I don't know that, to be honest, I don't know how any of us really understand what our constituents want at this point outside of just asking some folks. The data that was collected in the survey would indicate it wasn't that important. Having said that, I would support Mondays, but I would ask us to, next time we do a survey, to actually get some data on this to see what our constituents really do about this. So at this point, I would not change it. I mean, in support of Mondays, there are clearly advantages to doing your yard work over the weekend, getting it out of there, your garbage, with people you have over. So, I think it's a no-brainer that Monday is better just aesthetically and from what you're trying to do. But I suggest that we try to figure out what's important to the residents.
Thank you. So it looks like we do have consensus to stick with Mondays. Al, help me out here. Next on that is the contract price, which bid price we would like to take. The first one, the original one,
Correct.
or the second one. Can you please recap that again for us, please?
Yes. So Republic's best and final offer was offering a 3.8% discount in year one, which is about what was that, 40? What do I have here? I just lost that number. About a $45,000 price decrease in year one. in exchange for a minimum 3% CPI increase each year in years 2 through 5. And what we showed here in the analysis here above on your screen here is that if the board believes that CPI is going to be less than 1% on average for the next 5 years, then we shouldn't take that deal. If you think CPI is going to be above 1%, then we should take their best and final offer.
So best and final if CPI is above 1.
Correct.
Okay, does everybody understand that? Okay, so we'll start with Trustee Enright. Did you want the original one or the best and final? Which means the best and final is if you believe CPI is greater than 1%, that will be your deal.
I think you gotta, Al, you gotta rate your chart to show them the historic.
I'm sorry.
No, I got it. I know CPI. Yeah, so the best and final.
Okay.
Yeah, best and final.
Kenwood? John?
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, I tried to find the mute button. So I believe that CPI we will have CPI over 1% over the course of the next 5 years. So I think that puts me in the best and final. Is that the way I understood it?
That is correct. Thank you.
Yes.
Trustee Ladisek?
I'm predicting that, in fact.
Trustee Pride?
Yes, same.
Trustee Senek, same?
I think that prediction's a bit exaggerated, but I do agree that it's best and final offer.
Okay, so we have Monday only, best and final. The next decision is composting or cleanup? Which way do you want to go?
Clean sweep.
Clean sweep. Clean sweep. So clean sweep decision will be?
Yeah, so it would be Republic's proposal, which is $175 a ton. If you factor in approximately 500 tons, that's about $87,000, or just shy of $12 per household per year. And so we would, Director Coyle would tell us that we would spread that out over 2 years on a billing cycle, so it's really $6 per year per household.
$6 per year per household.
I'm in favor of clean sweep.
Okay, let me ask you this way. Is there any trustee up here who is not in favor of clean sweep?
I would forego it for the savings to our residents.
Okay. Trustee Kenwood?
I'm in favor of clean sweep.
Okay, so anyone else not in favor? Okay. Trustee Ledesma, can you still support the contract if we include clean sweep?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next decision.
The next decision is just the board's confirmation that you're comfortable with going through a 12-month year-round composting program. In the winter months, it would be every other year. This will be a voluntary, completely optional program. Trustee Ladisek, I think last workshop you were asking what our numbers are with the composting program. We're holding steady at, like last year, we're at 203 subscribers.
Okay. Is there any?
In the winter months, be every other week?
Every other week.
Is there any trustee up here who is not in favor of the composting voluntary program? Thank you. No? Okay. Yes. Are there any other decisions that you need from this board?
Just one more confirmation on electronics recycling. If your sentiment has changed since the workshop, or if you're comfortable with proceeding forward and adding that optional service to residents, be sticker based, and a resident would call it in, much like a bulk pickup, and it'd be picked up on their collection day. We would work with the hauler. I think some of your feedback in the workshop was kind of trying to simplify and have one sticker for e-waste, so that a resident doesn't have to put 15 stickers on a TV. And the hauler is very responsive and willing to do that. All the haulers were, for that matter. But we would work with them to achieve that.
Okay, so is there, okay.
Just one, they would have to call in to request that service.
So that the hauler knows it's that location they need to pick it up, yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
So is there any trustee who is not in favor of the voluntary purchase sticker electronic sticker program? Okay, so everyone's in favor. Any other decisions that you need from us, Al?
No, Madam President.
Okay, so we need a motion. Let's see. So Trustee Pride is making this motion. Do we need to add anything to this?
Well, I would I would name off the list in its entirety right now.
Okay.
And I would ask the board if you can have a motion to approve and authorize the contract for refuse and recycling services as, with terms as I've just identified.
Thanks for that.
You want me to do it?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. The consensus is to take Republic Services' best and final offer to support a 12-month composting program, to support cleanup day every 2 years, to support electronic recycling program, and to stick with Monday service collection.
Did you get the composting?
Yes.
All right, can I please have a motion to reflect the decisions of the board? Is that it? Is that okay?
To reflect the comments just made by Manager Franz, and all you need is a so moved.
So moved.
By our trustee.
Can I have a
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please? Second is Trustee Facilis. Can I have a roll call?
Trustee Pride.
Yes.
Trustee Facilis.
Yes.
Trustee Enright.
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood. Trustee Ladisek.
Yes.
Trustee Senek.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes. I appreciate all of the people who were came out here today for the hauling program. Hopefully, you understand our village a little bit more, and we look forward to, in 5 years, doing this all over again. You're welcome back. Okay, moving on to item J, wireless communication sites presented by our village attorney.
Yes, thank you, Manager Franz, for letting me present this.
Pleasure.
What the board is being asked to consider this evening is an update to our right-of-way code, construction code, relating to a sort of a modern development in society, which is the concept of the small cell wireless communications site. Just in broadest terms is a means by which wireless carriers can expand their coverage areas or improve their coverage areas. Anybody who's driven to Glen Ellen knows that there's some dead spots in town. So anyway, in general, that's the concept of this relatively new development. What I, in working with the planning department and Steve Witt in particular, who is familiar from his prior dealings with small cell communications and regulation of those types of sites or additions. Kind of wish we had a picture of one, but we do not. Anyway.
Have one if you want.
Well, let's see what you can put together. The only thing is, I will tell you and the board, before you look at any picture of a small cell site, they all can look different, and they have different shapes and sizes, and some are, you will see, are so obnoxious you could hardly stand it, and some are not. They're hidden by, I know at my sister's house in Arizona, there's one of these sites is covered by a palm tree. And, it looks like a palm tree. It's kind of amazing, but that's not what we're talking about here. Anyway, the United States Telecommunications Act, the Federal Act, and federal law preempts regulation of certain areas for local governments in relation to wireless communications. In essence, what it will create exceptions for are regulations related to public health and safety, and in particular in the situations where communications providers are looking to develop or provide small cell sites affixed to utilities in the municipal rights of way. We are not prohibited or preempted by federal law from including regulations in relation to what is the end product that we will allow to be used in our right of way. Now, the federal law does preclude us from discriminating against wireless users. We cannot say to a wireless communications provider, you cannot put a small cell wireless site on a ComEd pole in our right of way. We do not, we are preempted from doing that, the law precludes it. But it does allow us to create some regulations, which my recommendation and staff's recommendation was, let's use our existing right-of-way ordinance, construction in the right-of-way ordinance for utilities, and expand on it to provide additional measurements by which we can regulate size and type and location of these particular sites. We are not precluded from doing so. Other communities have actually adopted their own separate wireless communication facility act. And I think that that puts us closer to, or that would, in my opinion, put us closer to potentially violating the federal preemptions that are set up by federal law. As long as our regulations do not substantially impair the ability of a wireless company to deliver services to what amounts to our residents, we can do that. Attached to your board packet is a copy of the proposed ordinance. Steve Witt and I, as well as Stacy Halsberg, have been over and over this for over the course of a year. And if you recall, it came at least in a similar form to what it is today before the board, what was it, a month or two ago? And at the request of one or more trustees, we looked further into our authority to regulate and have done so. And this is what we're proposing. Just a couple of brief highlights from the ordinance. So if you look at, shoot, my page numbers did not come out. If you look at section 864, permit required application and fees, you'll see the first somewhat significant addition to our existing ordinance, indicating that right-of-way permit applications must be filed by the site providers with just certain requirements they have to meet to tell us where this will go, when it will go there, and how modifications can take place to once a site is established. The next major section of change is in section well, it's the same section, only it's paragraph D, supplemental application requirements, 1 through 6J, and this in essence sets out the requirements for what permit information must be submitted by the carrier, set out all the specifications, drawings, and so forth, so that our staff can review those to make sure they're in compliance with the law. The next section that I would point out is 816-13, general construction standards. These standards generally provide for safety for pedestrians utilizing sidewalks in the right-of-way and vehicles using the right-of-way. And as you can see from the list, they regulate the size, the height of the pole, the height of any extension for an antenna added to a ComEd pole, let's say, the finish of the products, how wiring must be performed. Section 8615, location of facilities, allows us to restrict certain locations where these ought to be or can be installed. We're not going to allow any new poles in the public right-of-way. There will be no corner lots that will have one of these small cell sites. They cannot be any closer than 300 feet together under any circumstance, and no installation of one of these facilities can impair sight lines at intersections for vehicles and pedestrians, or pedestrians or vehicles on vehicles. Section 8618, we've included language that says if one of these sites is located on a ComEd pole, let's say, in an area of town where we decide to underground cable and power and so forth, then they have to take their equipment down and move it to a place where then we will go through the process again. And then finally, 8620 3D, in essence, one of the things that we're going to require these providers to give us are emissions test standards or numbers, and there will be federal numbers that those exceed. I can't cite those. Steve can maybe cite those, but in any event, we're going to require the provider to indicate to us and test those levels so that we can make sure that they're in compliance with federal laws. And we've got the last section that I would talk about is if graffiti shows up on any of these, we require the provider to clean that up. I mean, those are the basic.
And there's a sample on that.
And there's a sample. I've seen bigger and I've seen smaller samples, but those are the types that we're looking at seeing down the road, the ones that are up on the screen today.
Oh.
Yes. Questions? Fire away.
Are there any in existence within the village currently?
No, we kind of got on this. It's sort of a newer development in terms of municipalities in this area. But we got on it because about a year ago or so we got our first application. We met the requirements for responses and have agreed with this provider over time to go through the process of review and exchange comments and drawings and so forth. But there's none. We want to implement this because we anticipate there will be more coming.
I did see you picked up the idea of, my concern was we have so many roadway improvement projects that involve the relocation of poles that we don't want to be, picking up the cost for putting somebody else, somebody putting equipment on in our right of way that we have to pay for. So that's why I was asking if there was any out there currently that were enacting policy that would retroactively throw costs back on a provider that they'd have to come back and pick up later. But if we don't have any, then these are all good out of the gate. Everybody's playing under the same rules.
Well, I think that's a good point, and I would not say that we have specified, Steve, you could help me on this, similar to what we do with ComEd, where if we do right-of-way construction and ComEd needs to move a pole, we can make them move the pole, as we did out by the police station recently.
Well, this language is telling me that it's their cost to do it, which is why I was asking the question, do we have any in existence now? Because we would be putting a policy in effect, after the horse is out of the barn.
Sorry, I lawyer on you and talked when I didn't need to.
It's fine.
Greg, if we have another solution available to them, can we?
So there's negotiating that will take place. I mean, they'll give us a site, let's say they submit a permit application, and I want to put one on this block.
Downtown.
Well, it could be downtown.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's any sites in downtown, and the advantage there is it's in a hole. That's why the water tower is like the best site in town in addition to
That's what I'm saying, yeah. And
but if there's a right-of-way pole in town, then they could submit a permit application. Now, we would have to go through the
light
various
pole
reviews.
is considered a right-of-way pole?
Well, we would restrict, light poles in the right-of-way. I mean, none of the ones that we've just, for example, put up in Glenelg, I think would be suitable for that purpose. But we will not, we prohibit installation of one of these wireless construction on our traffic signals, for example. And we would not allow them to impede what's the automatic changes of lights?
Opticom.
Thank you, Opticom. We would not allow interference with Opticom, and that would be studied by both our staff, and if we felt engineering review was necessary, then we prohibit it in a certain location.
Is there a fee that is paid to allow the installation?
Yes, we have an application fee, and we have once we approve a license, each individual location will require approval of a license by the village, and that will include an application fee, and then we have an annual fee, which cannot be, it can't be a big, it can't be as anything higher than what costs, what our reasonable costs would be to monitor and regulate.
Any other questions?
I have a few, I guess, revelations and questions. I mean, I'm not generally supportive of allowing radio frequency antennas on top of the poles. While we can't prohibit that, as Attorney Matthews pointed out, we definitely have every opportunity to regulate them, and we don't actually have as much authority to regulate like cell antennas like that are on our towers as we do with these, to my understanding. One of the issues that I have with these in doing some research on them is, aside from the aesthetic, you know, some of these things are the little ones on top of that light pole. You know, the only light poles we have like that, or you know, in neighborhoods and on like Roosevelt Road, we definitely should prohibit any from being mounted on our decorative light poles. They certainly couldn't be mounted on top of the new LED lights that we've got, but it could be mounted with some type of appendage, and then you know, so I think that, again, that should be added, that we would prohibit that altogether. But these things are going in residential neighborhoods, and when these microsites get mounted onto these utility poles, the radio frequency waves travel laterally. So while there's testing done saying that, yes, you know, on the ground underneath these things are relatively safe, or on the ground underneath the Cottage Avenue water tower, that, you know, those residents are relatively safe. If you put one of these things outside a bedroom window, you're going to have radio frequency exposure to the residents in that home. You know, so I do think that we need to carefully look at where these things are placed, so that they're not. And you know, Greg, you talked about having some testing done. I think that should be an absolute requirement, that not only should there be testing done on the ground, but in the proximity where the radio frequency waves are emitted, that there should be some testing done to make sure that no resident in this town is, you know, that their health is impacted by the radio frequency waves. I pulled a couple quick notes, one from the FCC and one from OSHA. But FCC says biological effects can result from exposure to RF energy. It has been known for many years that exposure to very high levels of RF radiation can be harmful due to the ability of RF energy to heat biological tissue rapidly. This is the principle by which microwave ovens cook. OSHA, there's a number of statements here, but you know, they recommend that users who conduct extended conversations by wireless phone every day are recommended to place more distance between their bodies and the source of the radio frequency. This is an OSHA recommendation for people that just use cell phones. So my concern is that if we mount one of these things on the top of a utility pole and it's right outside, you know, people's windows, that you're going to send radio frequency waves right through, you know, kids' bedrooms, you know, residents' bedrooms, regardless of their age. They refer to these as microsites. I'm not sure that the dollars that we're charging are apt for the potential risks that we have, or that we bring to our residents. I think we also need to add that we need to add escalators for any add-ons. If somebody comes back, I think we do a poor job of regulating. You know, we allow the Cottage Avenue water tower structure to get an antenna. And if you look at it now compared to what it started out at, it's just this monstrosity of antennas. I'm hoping that we got money for every appendage that was added to that antenna structure that's up on top of the Cottage Avenue water tower. But I definitely don't want this to happen on utility poles throughout our neighborhoods. You know, years ago, when fiber optics were put in town, you'll notice around town there's the fiber optics boxes. a lot of residents were very negatively impacted by the fiber optics boxes going into parkways, and we didn't require screening on them. You know, there's one at the corner of Park and Hill, just off the intersection. There's other fiber optics boxes around town that I don't know if the residents screened them, but again, there was no requirement for screening for those things, and there's a lot of them that just sit in parkways unscreened, and they're just ugly. We couldn't prevent them, just like we really can't prevent these, but we certainly can regulate them. So my suggestion would be send this back down to the Environmental Commission, because this is actually in their wheelhouse. Make a requirement that there's radio frequency testing before and after the installation, and not just at ground level, but at the path of the radio frequency emission from these microsites.
May I just say I absolutely applaud Trustee Ladisek's recommendation and support it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, nice job researching that.
I mean, it doesn't take much, but I've been involved with cell antennas in this town
Could
for 10
we do this?
years.
I don't know, and I'd like Greg, could we get something on the books and then send it back to see how we can make it better according to those? I mean, I think if we, let's say it takes 6 months, you could have someone who comes in. So do you put something on the books and then send it back with your concerns and say, let's address all these things to make to have another amendment to the rule?
So do you understand? So if I understand you correctly, at least get this beginning step on the books to protect us initially.
If somebody comes in tomorrow.
And then with a caveat that, but we have to hear what our village attorney has to say about these requests, but then we go back and tighten it up over time.
Well, I'm not sure that I agree that it's not tight enough, but the one thing I do want to mention, and what I was referring to in the United States Telecommunications Act, subparagraph B of 47 U.S.C. 332 C7, prohibits us from regulating placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of the environmental effects of radio frequency emissions. Now, we can require that they test and prove before and after what those emission standards levels are, because they do have to comply with federal regulations. We cannot set emission standards. We do not have that authority, and we do not have the authority to say you can't put one of these sites in any location because of emissions other than if they exceed federal standards. So I think I always stand ready for improvement, but I think we've covered that in this ordinance as it exists. But happy to have it reviewed by the Environmental Commission if they see fit, or if we see fit to send it there. But for the benefit of our planning department and our review of this existing facility, we need to have this in place so we can continue on with regulating in the fashion that we have regulated them thus far, and reviewing their plans and making them change things and bringing us new information. That would be my recommendation anyway to the board.
Yeah, again, I think it is some minor tweaks. I mean, and staff definitely did an awesome job. I mean, they addressed a number of things in here. I think that we should look at physical size of these, because the larger the antenna, probably the greater radio frequency emissions that they're going to put out. The two that are shown on the light poles up there are small. But again, I think who pointed out about the in Phoenix where they look like that you had said that?
Palm tree.
Right.
Yes.
So obviously those communities, and they're subject to federal regulations as well, but they have mandated that these things are screened in some manner. I don't want palm tree leaves sticking out of our utility poles any more than I want sticking off of a light pole. Again, I'm just concerned that we use every ounce of regulation that we have to regulate these. And again, if we have the ability to require a RF exposure test prior to and after the installation, make sure that there's no surrounding residents that are affected by the lateral movement of those radio frequency waves, then it would be one more step for me
to support this.
Great. Any other comments, questions?
I think the proposal to enact and then to task the Environmental Commission to address the concerns raised by Trustee Ladisek is a good balance of the interests. And apparently we have pending applications that will need to be dealt with, and that'll give us an opportunity to do that, while at the same time, you know, making sure the health and safety of the residents is, you know, taken into consideration. So I like the compromise that's proposed.
Anybody else? Comments, questions? Are there any, is there anybody signed up from the public to speak on the subject? Is there anybody in the public, or in the audience, sorry, that would like to speak on this subject? Yes, Kathy, go ahead.
I don't have an opinion yet, but I do have a couple questions. How many of these are we thinking that there would be? Do we have any way of anticipating that?
There's no estimate at this point as to what we might get in Glen Ellen. I think it's going to vary from community to community based on size and topography and all of those things. So.
And would there be any financial benefit to the village?
It would be, I would characterize it as minimal, and it would relate to the costs of our providing engineering review as well as staff time and review, and it would be a license, if the board approved, that would be issued on an annual, or renewed on an annual basis. It's a small, it's not a substantial fee.
And if we don't enact something right away, do providers have the option of just doing whatever they want to do?
That would never be the case, but if we don't enact something, if we do enact something, it gives our staff the authority behind it to tell the provider, you will do this and this and this and this, in accordance with our rules. Right now, we do not have rules that would apply to these wireless facilities. So this sort of gives us the ammunition to demand things.
Okay. I know the Park District was approached, I don't remember if it was just by one provider, with a desire to install something, I think maybe at Village Links, no, I'm sorry, at Village Green, and maybe at Sunset Pool, and we did not say yes.
There's a difference in the authority that we have to regulate. Those I would characterize as privately held property, as opposed to the public rights of way.
That's the big difference.
So our standard zoning rules would apply for us to enforce if somebody wanted to put a big tower in the middle of the Park District. Now that might take some revenue away from Ackerman Parks, but if the board did not approve such a site, but that's just, I'm wildly speculative.
And as a homeowner, if somebody approaches me and wants to put a cell site on my property?
It's a possibility, but again, then we have zoning laws in effect that would regulate what they could and could not do and where they might put it and what it might be.
We have more control.
I'd say it's really a remote concept that your average, I mean, there's height restrictions and that would apply in each zoning district, and you're not going to find too many residential properties that are privately held that would be attractive to any of these companies.
Okay.
Just to further touch on that point, all municipalities in this area are concerned about this, and they're closely following legislation both at the state level and federal level. The state has, the Senate passed legislation that gives us a lot less control to what we're talking about now. The feds are looking to do the same thing. So we are contesting that through the DMMC, but this is the wireless industry is really pushing hard for this, and they're likely going to really restrict us in a lot of different ways. So this is subject to change in the near future.
Trustee Franz is making me want to
Trustee
comment.
Franz? Why is everyone calling me trustee?
The only update I would give with respect to the very legislation you're talking about, the first bill that made it through was highly restrictive and would allow us to do nothing. But I will say it's been amended, and I think Trustee Lattice has been keeping up with that to the point where the legislature has at least acknowledged in some fashion that municipalities need to be able to regulate this.
Right.
These people, we can't set up a situation where they have no authority to say anything over the use of their rights of way. So as of May 30th was the last amendment.
Still
and,
go
and
far
I think it's
enough.
coming up. It's actually coming up. Was it June? Within the next week or so, I think further consideration.
So it's one of the only things the state legislature can agree on?
I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So we might be passing this tonight, just to have it null and void in 2 weeks, just so you know. So, and we could be passing it back to the Environment Commission and then telling them, sorry.
So I guess I do have an opinion based on the answers that I've received just now, which is I think we should regulate it as strictly as we possibly can.
Thank
And
you.
thank you.
Absolutely. Steve, go ahead.
Might I just offer, I've been sitting and listening to a couple of comments here. Some of these things I think I could hopefully clarify. Trustee Lattisak had a concern with regard to some of these utility poles and how many sites we're actually going to see on each. Concern that we don't see poles in neighborhoods starting to look like the water tower. But we do have a section in the proposal that says no more than one communication facility shall be installed on any existing utility pole. And the regulation, they have 300 feet in between poles of each carrier. These would actually be spread out, so you're not going to see utilities piled on. There's also restrictions that they can't go higher than 7 feet higher than an existing utility pole. So you're not going to see things starting to crop up in the public right-of-way like they have out on the West Coast, where mobility comes in and starts putting 150-foot plus towers in residential right-of-ways. The other concern for the RF, no, we can't regulate, as Attorney Matthews indicated, based on the health concerns. However, the FCC does have established regulations for exposure in a couple of different categories, one for workmen and one for the general public. In situations as such, they do have guidelines. We are asking for the tests to be provided within 30 days, which is probably a lot more strict than most, because most of the lease agreements that we have with the providers currently, I think either have a 60 or a 90-day time period from the time they turn on to the time they have to report to us. And then the other concern with regulation, according to the FCC, there are what they call shot clocks, which are either 90 days or 150 days, which is the response time that a municipality has in getting back to an applicant once the drawings are dropped on a permit counter. So for co-location sites or modification sites where there's existing equipment and they're adding 2, that shot clock runs at 90 days. For a new tower situation, that shot clock is 150 days. If we as a municipality fail to respond within that time period and issue a permit, legally the carrier can just start construction without pulling a permit. So it's important to have something regulated that we can go by. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful. All right, are there any other comments, questions? Anything else from the public? Okay, can I have a motion, please?
You're going to make the motion?
No, I'm not going to make the motion. And again, I would support the motion with the additional testing. I like Steve's comments, and Greg had touched on that earlier, that we're requiring testing, but I would like to be more specific that we do the testing where the radio waves are emitted, not at the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the kids playing on the ground are going to be fine. The kid in the bedroom, or one of us in a bedroom or some second floor area, depending on the height of that antenna, is going to be right in that way. So if we could make the edit, and if I could get my fellow board members to agree that we would edit this to have the testing done, in the direction of the radio waves.
Are you okay with that now, or do you want to come back? to that?
I'm okay with that. I mean, it could prove to be an issue if federal law sets the standards for emissions, and they would set the procedures in order to test those emissions, and our entry into that field could be questioned, but I don't see a big threat.
If we can do it, I mean, if we are prohibited from requesting that the test be done in the area where the radio waves are emitted, then that's great. I think it would benefit our residents. If we can't request that, then, you know, we need to round it up the ladder legislatively.
If this motion would be made, subject to attorney review, I will look further into that very question and report back and make the edit, if possible, as Trustee Ladisek has suggested.
I mean, you can put, if it's doable, we don't have to come back and vote on it.
No.
You guys
No,
did it.
you're just gonna do it.
And subject to attorney review.
Is it the intent that this be, that the Environmental Commission be tasked with addressing any further revisions to this that might be necessary to address some of the concerns about resident safety? Is that, I know that's not technically part of the ordinance, but is that just generally the concept that we're working under here?
So I would like to actually speak to Chairman Adam
Cruiser.
Cruiser, thank you. Call him Adam Vasulis. I know. About this because, well, I support it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that they understand the
Potential to have the state come in and supersede.
the state come in quickly to supersede it, but as well as their boundaries. That they might come up with all sorts of things, but they can't expect us to act upon it.
I think that's a wise approach to take.
Okay, so I will be happy to talk to them about it, but I don't want to make promises to the board that they're going to take it.
Understood.
Is that okay?
No, I think your approach is very sound.
I think they would be within their purview to review it and comment, but I don't think they would be in their review to set policy and
Right.
recommend policy.
Good.
I don't
Okay.
think that's in their
Sure.
appropriate
Comment.
role.
It's not in
Okay, so review and comment. Absolutely. Okay.
Sorry, I have to drop.
There you go.
Pass me.
Are you okay, Trustee Kenwood, on moving forward with the motion? Just say yes.
He dropped. He's gone.
Silence is
Yeah.
acquiescence.
Okay. All right. So, Trustee Ledesick, are you still not making the motion? Which is fine. I just want to make sure.
I can make the motion with the attorney review.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, though, for offering. Okay. So, can I have a motion, please?
Yes, I make a motion to approve ordinance number 6494 VC, an ordinance amending Chapter 6, Construction of Utilities, Facilities, in Rights-of-Way of Title 8, Public Ways and Property, and Chapter 7, Officers and Employees of Title 1, Administrative of the Village Code to regulate the installation of wireless communication sites constructed within the public right-of-way with additional attorney review.
Thank you. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Trustee Facilis? They're both pointing. Trustee Facilis seconded. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ladisek.
Yes.
Trustee Facilis.
Yes.
Trustee Senek.
Aye.
Trustee Pride.
Yes.
Trustee Kenwood. Trustee Enright.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Now, I just want to make sure we remove G. We talked about H, I, J, and K, correct?
Indeed.
Okay, so we are moving into reminders. Trustee Franz. Oh, jeez.
Manager Franz.
Manager Franz.
Big weekend this weekend in Glen Ellen, July 1st, the boat regatta, and then all the rest of the 4th of July festivities this week. So don't forget to mark your calendars. As far as meetings go, our next Village Board workshop is Monday, July 17th. Tentatively scheduled at 7 p.m. It might be a little earlier in room 301 at the Glen Ellen Civic Center. And then Village Board meeting is scheduled for July 24th at 7 p.m. in the Galligan Boardroom of the Glen Ellen Civic Center.
Thank you, Manager Franz. Is there any other business before the board?
I would like to make a recommendation that we have a workshop and discuss just a policy procedure on how things move from discussion, and then go to the village board. You know, lately we've had, there was some controversy around like the survey, where the last board was discussed the survey during budget time, and then the next step was there was a check written for this community survey. And while some people may or may not support the survey, when I first brought it up, nobody had read the questions on that survey. And it would have been an ideal item to discuss at a workshop, so that when we send out a survey to residents asking them if they eat 3 servings of fruits or vegetables a day, or if they've been involved in a political campaign, that I don't see that as a resident satisfaction survey, but things like, do they like Monday garbage pickup would be ideal, you know, for those surveys. But we didn't have the opportunity to really vet that at a workshop. It was discussed, it was stated in that workshop that we were going to bring this, in the budget workshop, that we were going to bring that specific item back for review, and it wasn't. And again, it just moved forward on a fast track. Tonight, with the discussion of the memorandum of understanding, you know, this wasn't discussed at a workshop, you know, and there was some, you know, discussion here this evening, but we didn't have the presentation that some of staff did, you know. So I think that as elected officials, that we should have the opportunity to digest some of this stuff at workshops if we are going to effectively represent our residents. So I think that policy needs to be set.
I will definitely take that up. I'll be happy to discuss it with you. But if we do this, we're going to take it one step further. And we're going to talk about the trustee involvement with staff going back, and that each trustee has to commit to working with staff before meetings so that there are no surprises such as tonight. So if we get an agenda, or if we get confidential reports, you have to have the ability and the commitment to respond back to staff and give your thoughts, so that there is an ongoing back and flow.
What do you mean, what surprises were there this evening?
Like the memorandum of understanding.
Right, because we didn't vet that at a workshop. That's my issue, is that I think that on matters like that we should.
So we can take this offline, and I'll definitely be open to that, and we can work something out. I'm just saying that if we're asking for a policy set by staff, I'm going to take it one step further and talk about how the trustees.
Diane, I'm not so sure I'm going to be the arbitrator of this discussion, because having a long-term perspective, and having been 20 years ago, there is some merit there. There is some merit here, but we were also structured differently, and we never would have had a meeting without subjects being discussed at a workshop. So there is some balance to keep business moving, but there is some balance that you need something. And I think part of it too is, from a different perspective, is there isn't, it's always a meeting, it seems like, instead of, you know, an alternative where you could have that time to discuss it. So I think you're right that you'd have to have a process, and you'd have to have some things, but you know, it's not necessarily a communication with staff too to give their opinion. It's getting it in front of the public so they have a time to respond, versus who knew that there was a memorandum of understanding coming here from the public to make a voice. So I think there is a need to look at it, but
absolutely,
there is some give and take on need for both parties, because you do have to move things forward.
Absolutely, and I know that things have changed and evolved over the years, and we're always looking for the best and most efficient way, but you make a good point that we cannot forget our residents, and making sure that
it's all about them, right?
Yep. So I am happy to work with Manager Franz over here. We'll discuss it, and I know our next workshop is packed, so we're going to have some fun there, but by all means, you know, part of our goal setting and things of that nature was talking about this. So I'll be happy to add it to there. Is there any other new business or other business? No? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is adjourned. I mean, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.